close off the cameras. It's just your USB mouse. It's not causing any USB port traffic.
Okay, this thing is frozen. Okay. Okay, so we are live. People can hear us. I just need to. Yeah, you can talk to them. They can hear us. Or you can ask them. And then I'm just
gonna. Sorry to the people out there. It's we're having network issues. This is something I experience every day when I'm at my place at home. The internet can be out at my house and 1 block away from the same service provider. It's perfectly fine, and that's kind of what happens in all this.
Okay. Yeah, they can hear us. Okay, so you guys, I'll send a link to everybody there. I just can't even move my computer. It's just absolutely insane. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, sorry guys. We're at a coffee shop at the C41 coffee shop on Bayswater and 4th Avenue in Vancouver. Can we hear you all? Okay, how's the audio though? Is it good? And I'm just gonna send a link to everybody, or everybody should know. Just go to my YouTube. I'm just gonna, I can't move. Okay, anyways, I'm just gonna open this up. Once we get to that one, we'll talk about that. Okay.
Have people seen the preview video?
Yeah. So have you guys all seen the preview video? We could, I don't know how to play it on here, but so that video was pretty amazing. I'll play it here so you could see it and describe it, because you haven't seen it right now, have you? So we can. There's the trailer was right here. So this was the trailer. I put it because it's 3 minutes maximum on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So here is what I did was also I sped it up, double speed, because I assumed it was at 0.5 speed.
Davis's 11-year-old daughter had been taking the video, and she accidentally had the camera set on slow motion and no audio.
Because it says audio is not that good. Guys, is audio not that good? I don't even know how to.
So you're on HD right now. That's causing a lot of network traffic. So turn that to 360 is good.
But people are saying their audio is not good. I just want to. Okay, so I think the internet's a bit faster, and I close everything down. And I'm gonna copy this link, shareable link. Here's the link.
Okay, so now the audio is good.
Oh, audio is good.
So as soon as you shut down the YouTube, the trailer running at 1080, then the audio improved, which means the Wi-Fi from your computer is interfering. It's interfering with the 5G signal that your cell phone is using. Because 5G, it uses all the previous frequencies, so 2.45. Like if the frequency band is open, 5G will also use 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi and 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi for its signal.
So let's see if I can do it like this. Okay, I'm just gonna make it a bit higher so it's closer to our mouth. Yeah, because people are saying they can hear us. Where did my other? Okay. So
the audio was okay.
I know, but I can make it higher, and I'll put this as a weight in the back here. So,
okay.
So then it'll be vertical. When it's higher, it's too much in the way. Okay. So now, but then that's gonna fall. Okay. So unless we put another copy.
Or just put it up against your laptop. Put it up against your laptop.
Yeah.
The audio slowdown was because of the network, not because of the position of the phone.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I do. You're like a tech whiz, huh? Much more than I.
Well, I did music production, so I know all about audio, and I did programming when I was at McGill, and that's why I wrote so many articles about AI. It's kind of tangential to medicine, but actually AI theory is general data theory. General data theory is genetics. General genetics is basically everything living on this universe, right? If you look at genetics from a data point of view, it's information. And the key about genetics is that it retains the previous version of the information. So if you want to think of it from a genetic data standpoint, every living organism that uses DNA to make copies of itself, and it trials and errors different versions of itself to see which version of itself is more successful in the environment, right? So if there's a version of itself that's less successful in the environment, that version is basically weeded out. That's called in the scientific biology community evolution. So the situation with AI is built on a similar data here, that as the data gets filtered through the AI processing system, it continuously changes the rates of certain pathways through the neural network. And if there's a certain pathway through the neural network that makes it better at generating, let's say, text that people believe is coming from a human, or if it's better at generating images that people like to look at, right? So fake AI-generated art. That more preferable output from the neural network is saved. If it's a less preferable output, like the AI generates text that people don't like to read or images that people don't like to look at, then that neural network pathway is weeded out. So basically, AI design is mirroring genetic evolution for the past billions of years. It's just happening at a faster rate on a digital ecosystem on silicon right now, as opposed to a carbon-based genetic nucleotide and base pair-based information system, right? So binary is 0, 1, that's what the computer world is based on. The biological world is based on ACGT, which is a quaternary data system. Instead of 0, 1, you have 4 values. So a 4-value data set or a letter set can be easily converted to a 2-letter data set. So if you put all of the genetic code data that's been collected so far into a computer, you can actually translate it directly into machine language. And machine language then, depending on what you put as the reading frame, right? Like where's the start point of the word, where's the end point of the word, you might be able to find valuable data just by putting genetics into an AI. And this is really important recently because 23andMe went bankrupt. That's the big US.
They actually went bankrupt?
Yeah, they went bankrupt. And so people are in a panic. Anyone who sent their genetic data into 23andMe to get analysis of their heritage, that data is in limbo. And because I think it's a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, anything valuable held by that company can be sold off at auction. So right now you have people bidding on all the data collected by 23andMe. And it might be Google, it might be Twitter, it might be Grok, it might be any of these mega corporations that will basically own all your data that you sent to 23andMe. And what they can do is then feed it into a machine to AI translate and see what kind of data they can scrape from your own DNA.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they're doing. Everything and anything is going to be fed into the AI. So, but the big thing is, I think, is going to be like the ones managing it is pretty much all the big companies already. So now imagine they have all that data, and then they close it off for anybody else. And so that's where I think the only way to stop that is alternative open source AI, where anyone can see the data.
So that's already been done. That was DeepSeek, basically a Chinese version of. I think they did it based on ChatGPT, right? They ripped the source code from that, or as much as they could, and made a clone of ChatGPT. So the interesting thing is if you go to sourceforge.net, you can actually get the source code for the Chinese version of ChatGPT, which is called DeepSeek. And the reason why that's so important is if you can read the source code, you can look for any malicious lines of code. Like, is this, when I use DeepSeek AI, is it secretly sending a copy to an IP address over in Beijing, right? And if you can read the source code, you can just delete that line of source code.
Oh no, but the data it's using is like, I don't think that's open source, isn't it?
No, DeepSeek, the source code for the training algorithms online. So the thing that makes
the actual data, the actual thing.
So DeepSeek was trained up till 2023 on general network traffic that was publicly accessible around the world. So anything past 2023, DeepSeek does not know, because the current DeepSeek, if you access the DeepSeek website, is only trained up to 2023. But I think because they wanted to get a foot in and a foot above ChatGPT, Grok AI, and all the proprietary AIs, China released DeepSeek source code. So that means you can go to SourceForge, you can find the engine that creates it, and then you can make your own DeepSeek. And this is really important because the way an AI ends up, it depends on what material you train it on. right? So if you train it on, let's say, fake news, then it'll be very good at fake news. It won't ever tell you the truth. It's basically like ChatGPT is now. ChatGPT is the most dishonest AI out there. It even makes fake references and fake citations. It's been proven to do so.
They also don't give you, like, they don't answer prompts for some conspiracies with the stuff.
Yeah. So this is the thing. If you have the DeepSeek engine, you can train your own AI because the algorithm's been already put online on SourceForge. You download the algorithm, you compile it, and it only depends on the size of your server rack. If you have a massive server farm with tons of NVIDIA GPUs running the DeepSeek AI, it can process a massive amount of information. If you only have enough for like one server rack in your room, you can train a DeepSeek AI on selective information. So let's say you did something like you took DeepSeek AI and you only have maybe a dozen NVIDIA GPUs, right? So you don't have $1 million budget. You have a limited budget, so you can't train it on all of the internet. But let's say you train the DeepSeek AI on just my Substack, so just the 100 or so articles I've written on that. So then that DeepSeek AI will copy my pattern of thought, my information that I have put on my Substack. So basically it's going to become like a clone of me. So if you ever wanted to ask me something, you download DeepSeek AI, you train it on my Substack, then basically it will answer questions as if it was me. So you'll have a pocket Dr. Nagase on your computer, on your server rack, in your bedroom.
No, I understand that part. The one, because I think pretty much everyone's gonna have like their own little clone AI to streamline things. But what I was saying is the actual data is because right now, for example, X gets all the data. So if you were to use the API to try to get their data, they probably don't give you access. So this is where.
I like to make the correlation to biology. How an infant and a child grows up depends on what kind of information you give them, right? If you abuse a child, if you make a child go into sensory deprivation, and they did these experiments in real life in East Germany, in communist East Germany, basically after the Cold War, all the human experiments they did, they went to communist East Germany. And one of their goals was to make the perfect assassin, to make psychopaths, make people into non-thinking robots who will commit assassinations without any thought of it. And what they used as their test subjects were orphanage kids, right? And they found out a lot about psychology, and a lot of how someone ends up as an adult depends on the information they were trained with as a child. Now let's take this correlation, this discovery from biology and psychology, put it into the AI realm. If you train an AI on CNN News, it's going to be dishonest. If you train an AI on selective information that's true, that's verifiable, you train it on, let's say, philosophy, Immanuel Kant, you train it on genetic, like basic biology textbooks from the 1980s and 1990s before they started to get polluted. You train it on factual things, the AI will become factual. It's like a child that's learning, because that's how the design of the neural net is. It takes the information that you give it, it learns the patterns, and then it extrapolates the patterns to do things that it wasn't taught.
Yeah, understand. Again, going back to that.
So you don't want the Grok API, the ChatGPT API, because that's the data set that created the commercial API. You want to create your own data set, clicking on articles, selecting articles that you find factual, that show a pattern of thought that you agree with. Then you feed the things that you filtered as the adult, as the parent of that AI. You take the selected information, then you feed that to the AI. Then it learns from what you've trained it on, and then it can seek similar information and become an extended version of you. And I think that's probably going to be the future of AI.
No, I understand about that selective one, but the reason I say API about X is they have unlimited data. Like, for example, if you want to know just the weather or what is going on, like earthquake zone or whatever, and it's all real time, but the thing is they block it off, so people will use that AI that has most relevant, even if again if you have they take everything. So one way is you can just tell it, okay, give me the answer, but ignore the mainstream. For example, Wikipedia or CNN, whatever.
Right. So then that's what you'd want for your personal AI, right? The big players, the Twitter, the Chat GPTs, the big players, they all want you using their API because then they can control what information you get. They can control whether or not you get factual information or false information. Controlling the narrative is very important. Even today, it was important yesterday before AI, it's important even in the age of AI. Now, if you want your own personal AI to be a clone of the big AIs, Grok, ChatGPT, that's never going to happen unless you have billions of dollars, right? You don't want that. If you just want to check the weather or you want to check what's the programming code to, let's say, programming an array for, let's say, a data analysis on a Excel sheet, you can use the commercial AIs for that, right? You don't need to repeat their data set. If you're looking for a factual AI that just gives you the genetic facts about mRNA, the genetic facts about reverse transcriptase, it's better for you to take a known to be valid data set and feed that directly to your own AI.
No, I know. Then the question is, where are you saving this? The reason I'm alluding to this is because on the Hive one, so right now, that in Leo website, they're developing their own AI, but all the data will be on Hive. That's easily accessible by anyone. And what they've also done is a YouTube auto summarizer, and where you can just go put a YouTube link in there, just put that $ summarize, and we'll summarize. We'll get the transcript summarized, we'll put it on the blockchain. So now that summary of that video is on a publicly accessible blockchain that anyone can use for their own AI model.
Yeah. So you know where Google, which owns the YouTube system ecosystem, they can game that. Is they can game it at the level of their transcript translation AI. So Google currently, because they have the most data from YouTube, has the best auto translate of random people talking on video and translating it into text. So if they game their AI to only translate certain things, or if somebody's talking about a topic that Google doesn't want you to talk about, what Google will do is it'll get its AI translator to mistranslate everything you say on a YouTube video. Now that spoiled transcript at the level of Google is going to be fed to Leo AI or any other Hive blockchain AI, and then that AI is going to be spoiled at the level of language.
No, I understand, but that's like
that's one of the pitfalls.
I know that's
digital warfare. It is.
It is. But the thing is, let's say you get a video and it's on there already, and the thing is, if someone changes it,
if someone changes the transcript, you'll see the history.
The thing already started beforehand.
Yeah.
And the reason is because it will never be gone. Assuming the blockchain keeps going on. But anyways, there's a bunch of AI talk. But I think so. The topic of the video was the Theo Lim one. And actually, I'll play the trailer just so you can see it again, just to get your thoughts on this. So I jam-packed all like a bunch of minutes into 3 minutes, and let's see if it will work. Okay, so this is working better. I think we can do HD now, just because I close everything off. So the first clip was for those in the audience, if you haven't seen the trailer, it's absolutely wild. So if you can say, the video was slow motion and muted by the daughter by accident. Is this?
She's a 10-year-old filmographer. She's learning.
Yeah, so the 10-year-old daughter.
She's got a great future ahead of her because she's a brave filmographer, which is a brave reporter.
Yeah, but again, traumatized though. That's but resilient. And again, you can see. So I sped up by 2x. So I assumed it was. It seemed to be. I think that's what it was. It was slowed down by 0.5. But if you can see it now, here's normal speed, not slow motion, but it's still muted. And so this was there was the social worker. Yeah, and so he was going to visit. Did he spend any time yet?
No, because this social worker, the one in the knit sweater, she canceled the visit before it even started because the family took family photos outside of the social work office at the top of the hill by the street. That was her excuse for canceling the visit. So it's completely arbitrary. It's aggressive in a way that that she's just finding, even if they did nothing, she would cancel the visit just because the court gave her that right, even though it's not really her right. Justice Sangha, Susan Sangha, gave this child away. So she feels like it's her right to cancel visits at any time.
Yeah, okay, so let's run that down. So basically, because there was cameras there and there was some other anti-vaxxers there, my kind of people. Yeah, so they were there, and then so she noticed that they were taking photos. Or they take photos of Theo? Or just of anything?
They were just taking family photos outside. Theo hadn't even been brought into the social work office, but someone inside the office saw them taking photos by the side of the street, and this woman in the knit sweater, she used that as an excuse to cancel the visit.
So cancel because there's photos of, like, if people want to see what's going on. Okay. And then the other part is the custody, because so they had the tracheotomy, or I think it's pronounced.
Tracheostomy.
Yeah, tracheostomy. Yeah, so they had that after they lost custody. And then does that losing custody, is that why they put them in the foster care?
Yes.
But they got the two. Why wouldn't the parents still get them anyways? I thought they would lose.
So in British Columbia or Crown law, a child is a thing. It's not a human being, right? So when a thing, let's say a car, a wallet or something, has been transferred legally to another person, the previous owner has no more rights. Okay, now that is how family law, how children's law is based in British Columbia. Once your child, your chattel, has been transferred to social work owns your child. That means legally you have no more rights to that child. And that is why we see the behavior of the social worker saying, we're canceling the visit because this plaything, this child named Theo, is not yours, it's mine. And you see that throughout the video, throughout their interactions. The social workers, the foster care, treat Theo Lim, a boy, a son of Davis and Rena, as a thing, as property. And it's their right because now it's legally their property to do what they want. To abuse, to neglect, and to kill. Children who lose their lives in foster care, no one gets prosecuted for murder.
Yeah.
That's because the child has been converted into an object. And that is the legal system in British Columbia, in Canada. In fact, probably throughout the entire Commonwealth. Now, if you take the approach that Theo Lim is the son of Davis and Rena, and the reason why I say son is under Old Testament rules, there's no such thing as a child. There's either sons or daughters.
Okay.
Now, lawfully, under religious law, and we're going to go by heretic or Hasidic Jewish Old Testament law, if a boy or a girl is a son or a daughter, they have rights that overrule legal rights. And these are called lawful rights under the highest authority. Okay? So there's the authority of man, rules that we make up, that's the legal system. Then there's rules that are higher than man, which is the religious system. So under the laws that are created by that which is higher than man, sons and daughters have rights that stand over and above the rights of children, which are legal rights created by man-made terms like child, children's, the Family Act, the Divorce Act, the ministries that operate under statute law.
Okay, it's another thing I was gonna say about that. So if you go back to the trailer, so basically they took custody after they lost that lawsuit. So they took it just because they didn't want to get that surgery. Then, was there any other reasoning?
The doctors at Children's Hospital called social workers to intervene because the parents did not want their child to be perpetually on a ventilator and to have the surgery for a potential lifelong ventilation. And because the parents disagreed with the doctors didn't like it, and they used social workers to take temporary custody. This September, was the continuing custody hearing in front of Justice Susan Sangha. So what she did was she prevented me, a doctor, from attending the cross-examination and witnessing the testimony of the Children's Hospital doctor, Dr. Mark Chilvers. And basically she used the sheriffs to violently throw me out of court for sitting and observing the testimony of a BC Children's Hospital doctor. So I never got to observe his testimony. Later on, that same day, I tried to return to the court, and I stayed outside the courtroom because Davis Lim had asked me to be a witness, an expert witness on their behalf. Justice Susan Sangha used sheriffs to, with force, remove me from the courthouse, even though I was not even in her courtroom.
So they actually got the police officer security?
No, they got the sheriffs of the courthouse to remove me from that court, even though I was not even in her courtroom. I stayed outside to wait for permission to enter as an expert witness. So after blocking cross-examination of Dr. Mark Chilvers, the Children's Hospital respirologist, after preventing Davis from having an expert witness of his own, which was me, Justice Sangha decided that the Ministry of Social Work should have full legal custody of Theo Lim. And that's how Davis and Rena lost their son to the system, the legal system.
Okay, so they lost it, and this was after the surgery?
This was after this. This was this past September 2024.
Okay, and how long have they? So I just want to see the time. So was it like over a year that they had a surgery, and then up to September?
It was over a year and a half after the surgery that the parents never wanted. So the surgery was done under a temporary custody order, where the social workers took temporary custody. They gave consent to the doctors to do the surgery, even though the parents did not want it. Right, and in my medical opinion, that surgery was not necessary because Theo did not need permanent ventilator.
Yeah. Okay, so then basically a year and a half later, then
it's gone through the legal system.
So they lost, but that whole year and a half. So they go to the legal system. That's for custody, or what is that?
So during that time, Theo was still at Children's Hospital, but in rehab. So after September, when Justice Sangha stole Theo Lim from his parents and gave full custody to the social workers, sometime after that, the social workers were able to take Theo out of Children's Hospital and put him into a foster home, where now we have medical proof and video proof that he's been neglected since his release from Children's Hospital on January 29th, and when I observed him on March the 13th.
Okay, and then so when the judge gave full custody to the government, and was that because you were there, or what's the reason?
No, I don't know what the reasoning was for Justice Sangha, but it has something to do with the doctor's accusations from BC Children's Hospital that the parents were not obeying doctor orders, that the parents were resisting the interventions and the treatments that the doctors wanted to give Theo. So in order to overrule the parents, the doctors, led by Dr. Mark Chilvers of the Children's Hospital team taking care of Theo, they overruled the parents, did the surgeries, did the interventions that were unnecessary, and they used social workers to do it. So the trial that happened in September of 2024, that was the judge, Justice Susan Sangha, giving formal custody completely to social work. And that was after hearing only the expert testimony of Dr. Mark Chilvers. And Dr. Mark Chilvers, he was the one who kept putting unnecessary treatments, unnecessary surgeries, and pushing those onto Theo Lim. So whatever he said during the trial, where Davis and Rena, the mother and father, had no fair opportunity to rebut his testimony, because I was not allowed to observe his testimony, nor was I allowed to give expert testimony on my own. After only hearing one side of the story, Justice Susan Sangha gave Theo over to the social workers.
So basically, they had one expert doctor and he's the one prescribing all these surgeries and so on. And then after that time, the judge literally just took him away. Okay.
Based on his testimony, that's what I suspect happened.
Okay, but then the question is, what led up to that point? Like, because they took the surgery. I'm just trying to see, and then during that 1.5 year time span, who was the one doing the legal stuff to take custody? So the government literally imposed that they went off.
No, the social workers had temporary custody.
Okay, that was temporary after the surgery. Okay.
No, that was what before the surgery. That was in 2022.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why the social workers got temporary custody was because the original lawyers that Davis and Rena hired through their church betrayed them. Basically, when it went to trial and the judge said, well, this child is going to go under social work, the lawyers stayed silent and did not oppose the judge's offer to put the child under the care of social work, even though Davis and Rena had been paying this lawyer thousands of dollars. Right? And so why would a lawyer betray his client like that? Well, the lawyer, by oath, by being a member of the Law Society, also has a competing oath to the Crown. So who's a lawyer going to maintain their oath to? A client of the day who pays them $1,000, or the oath to the Law Society, which governs their ability to earn an income for the rest of their career.
No, definitely, because I've also seen the oaths that the Prime Minister takes.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the one Trudeau? He's literally doing an oath to the Queen and will obey everything the Queen does, and I'm like, this is a sick joke or something?
So every politician, okay, and I verified this in person with one of the guys, the provincial politicians who was running against Danielle Smith, Todd Lowen. And this was in northern Alberta. And I asked him, I said, you campaign and you say you're going to represent your riding and all, but when you cross the threshold and you enter a House of the Crown, and that was the provincial legislature of Alberta, who's your oath to? And Todd Lowen looked down and he said, it's to the Queen. Right? So it doesn't matter who you vote for as a politician. They could be your friend, their lifelong friend from age 2. The minute they enter a House of the Crown, and you know it's a House of the Crown because it has the crown crest on it, 2 lions and a unicorn, they have no more oath to tell you the truth, to act on your behalf. In fact, as soon as they enter the House of the Crown, their only loyalty is to the Crown. So any politician, they can tell you whatever you want to hear. They can promise you anything. But as soon as they enter a legislature, if they go against the Crown, they are committing treason.
No, because it makes sense, because they're doing an oath to the Crown, but to you they're doing a promise, but that doesn't mean anything. So next time tell a politician, can you do an oath to me that you're going to actually try it?
No, and I've told this to members of the freedom community. There's so many people who do fundraising. There's one doctor who was the thoracic surgeon at Vancouver General who quit because he didn't want to take the experimental vaccine. He gave $150,000 of his own money to this lawyer, a King's Counsel lawyer, previously a Queen's Counsel lawyer. And what was that lawyer's name? Peter Galt. Peter Gall was the name of the lawyer. $150,000 of his own money to fight a mandates case that Peter Gall was doing as a judicial review. And I said to this doctor, right, the surgeon, make sure you get Peter Gall to sign an oath to you. You gave him $150,000 of your own money. You're trying to raise another $150,000 off of the freedom community through auctions, charity dinners, and whatnot. Make sure that King's Counsel lawyer is working for you and not King Charles. He wouldn't do it.
Yeah. So you actually told him to do an oath
to your client,
that's great.
and the lawyer wouldn't do it, Peter Gall. And guess what? The lawsuit he brought up against the vaccine mandates as a judicial review was sabotaged from day one. If you actually read his initial filing, he doesn't want to win anything. He just wants a declaration from the government that vaccine mandates are unreasonable. And as far as restitution for harms caused by the vaccine mandates, he said whatever the judge wishes. right? So even if he won that lawsuit, everyone else loses that lawsuit because he's not asking for anyone to be restituted or made whole from what they lost because of the vaccine mandates. What's more than that, at the end of the day, he lost the lawsuit because he made a weak legal argument. He was arguing all sorts of case law and legal nothings when he should have been using the Canadian Human Rights Act, which says there should be no genetic discrimination. Whether or not you take a genetic experiment it's prohibited to discriminate people based on a genetic experiment. He should have been using the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from 1948, which Canada signed on to. There's any number of a body of law that would have made an effective legal argument. Yet this lawyer, Peter Gall, used none of them. And so by his actions, by what he writes, by how he acted, taking people's money, and the fact that he had Queen's Counsel and King's Counsel attached to his name, his only loyalty was to Queen Elizabeth and then King Charles after Queen Elizabeth died. And, I would hope that the most straightforward-ish doctors that I know of would be able to see that fact. That they're paying him money, but his loyalty is to the crown, right? And
he wouldn't swear an oath,
he wouldn't swear an oath, and
because that's a good. I think that's one of the most actionable points us in the freedom movement can do. Anyone that has this kind of, let's say, if they're a doctor and so on, they want to do something like legal stuff. They need to do on videotape a public oath saying they will do X, Y, Z. Like they will try to do it. If they
the person that they're giving money to owes an oath to the client above and over all other oaths.
Yeah, but also including that if they are proven that they were like going against their own oath, then they'll have to do some sort of penalty, either monetary or actually impose that in the camera. Because the thing is, we can't trust anyone.
Well, no, the least trustworthy are lawyers.
Yeah.
And it's right in their name. If it says King's Counsel or Queen's Counsel, that's who they work for. Doesn't matter if you're the one paying them, they work for the crown. Unless they put in writing something otherwise, saying that no, they are working for principles of human rights or humanity or something other than the crown, over and above all other oaths. If a lawyer can't sign that, they're not working for you.
And their name's also lawyer, liar. It's like So people are saying about the sounds. Yeah, so we're in a coffee shop. We're actually in the coffee shop in the trailer at the end. If you saw the trailer, that's that coffee shop. But it is a bit loud. Yeah, I think next time we should do something quieter, like a library with a library work maybe next time. Okay, but so anyways, I think we understood now. So that Theo Lim basically was in temporary custody before the surgeries. And what was the reason for temporary? That's also because the doctors / social workers didn't like that. They were disagreeing with.
So the parents didn't want the surgery. The parents didn't want a ventilator since Theo was able to breathe without a ventilator from 10 months of age. At 16 months of age, the doctors they kept Theo on a ventilator for 6 months longer than he needed to be. They were using pressures on the ventilator fit for an adult, not for a 10-month or 16-month-old baby. And the parents were disagreeing with the treatments from the Children's Hospital doctor, Dr. Mark Chilvers. So because the parents were disagreeing with that, and the doctors wanted to escalate into a surgery for a tracheostomy tube in the neck, the doctors called the social workers to take the child away from the parents. When the parents' lawyers, the one they got from their church, betrayed them in the courtroom and gave their child over to the judge, who promptly gave their child the temporary custody of the child to the social workers, those social workers then went on to consent to the surgery against the parents' wishes. And that's how the surgery got done when Theo was about 16 months of age.
Okay, yeah, so basically it all started from not wanting the surgery. But I also read that they wanted a less invasive surgery in America. They wanted to, that's what the article said.
Yeah, I mean, if a child can breathe on his own without a ventilator, they don't need any surgery. They just need time off a ventilator.
No, that's definitely
right.
Or even like
and after being threatened, after being coerced by BC Children's Hospital, the parents went looking for alternatives. Okay, my medical opinion is the only alternative that Theo actually needed was no surgery. He just needed time off a ventilator.
No, I do.
So then people, unfortunately, when people are under pressure, they start grasping at straws, right? And the less invasive surgery would have been less invasive. It would have been better for Theo in the way that it wouldn't have interrupted his ability to learn how to speak. But again, that was not allowed by, like, BC Children's Hospital didn't want a second opinion. They just wanted to have control and do the surgery and collect the hospital stipend for doing the surgery and daily care for a high needs patients to collect from the government.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. But the other thing I was thinking, because you said he had a rare genetic disorder, and also how rare is it?
It's very rare. I've never seen it until I met Theo.
Yeah, because so my brother works in ICU, so he's skeptical because he's in his he sees a lot of parents that they go against the doctor's wishes, but typically the doctors are more corrective. But he says a lot of he says typically the average parent, it's like they don't want to do the surgery, but they're not as but he says that typically the doctors are right, that the actual parents are overlooking the benefits or
so
something like
this is a common logical error that 99.99% of people in society today they go by. Because something is usually the case, people extrapolate, well, that's always the case. Okay. I've seen medical conduct since 2020 that is unconscionable. It's wrong. It's completely wrong.
The masking,
right? And even like, as far back as 2002, when I did my first ICU rotation at Vancouver General Hospital, even as a medical student, I saw doctors being wrong. So even though your brother's respiratory tech at VGH, Vancouver General Hospital, and if he thinks that doctors are mostly right, well, again, he has to look at his own background and be honest about his knowledge level. As a respiratory therapist, his specialty is knowing about ventilators and ventilation. That's his specialty. He doesn't have the general diagnostic treatment and theoretical knowledge that you're supposed to get as a doctor. So things can look right to him. A doctor can say, well, I'm right. And if he goes by what the doctor says, he does not have the knowledge base to know when that doctor's wrong. When that doctor's lying to him, well, I'm right. See, I'm right. Okay? Because in order to see a doctor, you have to be able to know when a doctor is doing something that's medically wrong, you have to have at least the same knowledge background as that doctor. Nurses don't have the same knowledge background as doctors. Respiratory therapists don't have the same knowledge as doctors. ICU doctors don't have the same knowledge base as a family doctor. Family doctors don't have the same knowledge base as an ICU doctor. You have to be very specific that when you make a statement, like doctors are usually right, you're actually qualified to make that statement. And as a respiratory therapist, he's not even close to making that kind of a judgment.
But even then, like, he was forced to take the vaccine. Like, he didn't want. He took the first one. He had a mild bad reaction, and he tried to do he was trying to avoid it. And he took the first one because they're forcing it, and then he did an allergy test. Didn't said he had no allergies to.
Did he have a degree before going into respiratory therapist training?
I'm not sure. He went to. I'm not sure what degree he has. I think he had an kinesiology or something like that.
Okay, so he's not going to know.
No,
he's not going to know genetics.
But even then, I know because my view is if you're in the system, you're going to be biased. But also, the system was against him. They forced him to take vaccines. It's kind of like. So why are doctors right then? I know wrong then, but not right. But again, the other part is, I think part of it is lazy. If you assume okay, the outside of this person is telling you the system's wrong, it makes you actually want to do something.
So this is the thing. If people can be honest like a computer, if your doctor can say, in the past, I've always thought doctors were right.
Yeah.
But right now, I don't know. If he can just take that one step to be perfectly honest, the entire society will change. But the problem is 99% of people in society today, inside the freedom movement, outside the freedom movement, inside the truth movement, outside the truth movement, they all exaggerate their level of knowledge. Right? And people all speak as if they know something when they are just believing something. Right? Believing is not a fact. Knowledge is a fact. You've known it because you prove it. You've experienced it or you've witnessed it. You have the knowledge and the whereabouts to know something is true, not just a belief.
No, definitely. And also, speaking of the computer part, so there was a story online. It was on X. So a person went to a doctor and then they did an X-ray scan, and the doctor was giving him some like dire consequences. He call it it's something really bad about that. So what the guy did was actually upload it to ChatGPT, and then it said, oh, it was bad, but not that bad. It was like mild. He sent it back to the doctor, and the doctor says, oh, actually, I overlooked that. I guess it's not as bad. So he actually. So if he didn't use just an alternative, just AI, just to double check, he may have been doing surgery that didn't even need. So I think that's another part where people have to start realizing when you're dealing with people's lives, you gotta be right, or even like willing to sign an oath that you'll try to be right.
Well, see, the thing is, ChatGPT also lies, right?
Yeah, well,
and
it
so
goes with whatever.
it also depends on the environment, right? If ChatGPT has no liability if it misses something serious, right? So if a doctor looks at an X-ray and there's a 10% chance that it's something serious, then usually the route is to do more tests, a CT scan or a blood test, to verify whether or not what looks like it might be serious on an X-ray in fact is serious. That's the usual route. Putting something as inexact as an X-ray and putting it to ChatGPT and then asking it, I mean, in my opinion, that's stupid. Because ChatGPT is like, yeah, it's probably fine. There's 90% chance it's fine, and a 10% chance it's going to kill you. So let's say, you run across the street. There's only a 10% chance that you're going to get hit by a car and killed. Are you still going to take that risk? No, right? So what the problem, I think, in medicine is that the expectation is so high to cater to people's beliefs instead of a fact that doctors have by default told patients, oh, everything's fine, when there was always a 10% chance it was cancer. And then that 1 in 10 patient, that 10 out of every 100 patients that gets told everything's fine, because that's the most likely diagnosis that ChatGPT or another general practitioner will agree with, those 10 people out of every 100 people seen every week they get cancer and they die and they start complaining about their doctor. How come they didn't tell me that there was a 10% chance that little shadow on the X-ray was cancer? Right? So is that a worthy sacrifice to reassure people, oh, everything's fine, everything's fine, when really there's a 5 or 10% chance, no, it's actually a cancer.
No, I understand. Right? That's why
I'm taking this from the perspective of a family doctor. Family doctors are like people. There's a bell curve. Some of them who will be brutally honest, right? Sometimes brutally honest family doctors, they get the worst reviews. They're like, yeah, your X-ray's fine, the report's fine, but when I look at the X-ray, there's a little bit of an abnormality. There's a 5% chance it might be cancer. Right? You have a family doctor who's like a computer. Guess what that patient is going to, 90% of patients will be like, my doctor told me I'm going to have cancer. Right? Even though what the doctor literally said was there was a 5% chance of cancer. Then that patient's going to get a CT scan or get other tests. They're going to find out it's not cancer. And then they're going to say, my doctor is a mean guy. I hate him. I'm going to find another family doctor. He keeps telling people he's going to get cancer. Right?
I read a review. One of them was like that.
No, right? So then a doctor, right? Yeah. Okay, you have to think of a doctor as an AI algorithm of his own.
Yeah, definitely.
A doctor, at the beginning of his career, he's taking things literally, just as he learned from textbooks and pathology textbooks. And he tells people the truth, the absolute truth. 5%, 10%, 5%, 10%. You know, it looks okay, but, you know, we have to make sure it's not something more serious. They get a few bad reviews. Guess what? Now they're telling everyone, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And 95%, 90 to 95% of his patients are writing him 5-star reviews, saying like, oh, my doctor, you know, I was so worried I had cancer, and, you know, he said my chest x-ray's fine. I feel so good. He's the best doctor ever.
No, I know. It's one of those where the likely expectation
in a way, the way doctors are now is partly a product of their environment. That people can't handle the truth. People can't have a realistic knowledge of life and death, right? People don't realize that everyone dies, right? And they spend their lives acting in completely unreasonable manners based on their beliefs, right? So, oh, I'm scared of dying. Everyone around me should take this medical experiment because I'm scared of dying, right? That's horrible. That's atrocious. That's Nazi. That's fascist behavior. But people will deny it because they will use their own fear of death, which is as inevitable as birth, as the unreasonable excuse to force unreasonable acts upon other people.
And there's no liability on those things that you're forcing upon. So there's no liability on the manufacturers that produce the vax.
Yeah. Right?
So that was probably never understood. So they're forcing someone.
So how did politicians get away with that?
That's a good question.
People let politicians get away with giving absolute immunity to pharmaceutical companies by fear. They're like, oh, this, you know, the pharmaceutical companies, they're trying to protect us. They want to sell us stuff to protect our lives, to save our lives. And if they're responsible for like a bad batch or people getting poisoned from their products, well, then they can't make stuff to protect me.
What?
Right? So I'm going to support the politicians that give legal immunity to the companies.
We'll do that with cars too, car manufacturers. So if your car breaks down, don't blame.
Right? So it's people's unreasonable fears that have allowed politicians to get away with murder.
But also, I think like all the legal guys are like signing oaths to the crown, Freemasonry, or whatever. So it's like they're, even if whoever you vote just your best interest, they don't want that. They'll get whatever is the big lobbying interest. So it's one of those similar to like that. He said so. Davis Lim. So he got the church lawyers, his friends. Were they actually friends or?
Yeah, friends from his church.
Okay, friends from his church. So then those same people also backstab him. So like imagine now we're dealing with billions and trillions of dollars.
So here's a very basic thing that I'd like people to learn. What I noticed in a number of different churches, faiths, right? Islam, Jewish, Christian, is that a lot of what people come out the door with doesn't necessarily correlate with what they're actually taught in scriptures, whatever version of scriptures or variation of scriptures they're being taught, is an attitude of judgmentalness. So what they'll do is they'll judge, oh, he's a good person, so everything he does is good. Right? They will ignore the actions, right? And, you know, this is something very basic that crosses multiple faiths, and which is why it's such a discrepancy that I notice it in so many people who religiously or faithfully attend churches, is that they get very judgmental about people. Oh, Trump is a good man. Trump is a bad man. You know what? It's none of your business to judge another man.
Yeah.
Right?
All you have is your options.
Leave that to the after. Leave that to the heavens, the afterlife. Always judge a person by their actions. Right? Making a judgment like, oh, everything Trump does is good because he's a good man, or everything Trump does is bad because he's a bad man.
Yeah, the
right?
syndrome.
That is, you know, that is the person who's making that judgment is out of his or her mind.
Yeah.
Okay? Because that's not a judgment you can make.
It's like propaganda being fed
right?
this purpose way for that opinion.
If you are interpreting something like, you know, Fauci did it for greed, okay, you're out of your mind.
He's the
Because the only
that-
person who knows why Fauci did it is Fauci.
Yeah.
So a truthful statement is, I think Fauci did it for greed. But there could be other reasons. Maybe it was sadistic. Maybe he just wants, he doesn't like people. He wants to kill as many people as possible because he was bullied when he was a teenager. I don't know.
Or he's blackmailed, again, probably
Or
selling
blackmail,
a bunch of because he
or
was
there's-
doing the same thing with the HIV
Right?
situation. He's
So-
the exact same.
When people say, you know, Trudeau's guilty of treason, I was like, no, you're a liar. You think Trudeau's guilty of
Yeah.
treason, but is he?
Yeah, the government is against you, so when he's against you,
Right.
he's actually doing the government's doing the crown's doing.
Trudeau is not guilty of treason.
No.
He's faithfully following his oath to Queen Elizabeth and now King Charles.
Yeah.
And treason is only going against the crown. That's it.
Yeah. And
If you don't go against the crown, doesn't matter what you do to the people, it's not treason.
Yeah. I want to tell the audience that if you guys have some time later, search up like Trudeau oath to the Queen. It's absolutely like it's weird, like how scary it looks. He's literally saying an oath, like when he becomes prime minister, that he will serve the Queen for like whatever she wants.
So no matter who you vote for, the politician, they have no obligation to you in the Canadian system.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah, the U.S. has a constitution that they don't really care about. So. All right, so I want to continue with that video. We're still in the trailer, and then because also people were asking some that were just showing up in the chat while we're in a coffee shop. That's a good question. This is the coffee shop that he got arrested in, and we'll play the video for you guys. We're on the 53-second mark.
I'm just gonna go to the washroom and get another coffee.
Oh, yeah, get a washroom, and I will see what I can do. I'll entertain these guys. All right, guys. We are back, guys. So he went to the washroom. I'm just gonna look through here, and I'll see what I can do in here. I will comment in the chat and stuff. Hey guys. Okay, guys. Yeah. So, anyways, it's another wild stream. Hopefully the sound isn't too bad. I told him to let's get a quieter place, and he just said he wanted me to this coffee shop. So I'm like, okay, we'll just go here. And this is the place that he actually got arrested in. And let's see what we can. See what we could do. Reverse camera. All right. So we're here on Bayswater. Let me search up here. So Bayswater and 4th Avenue. Where's the 4th? Okay, there's a. Okay, there's a. Is that a dog? No, that's a kid on a scooter. Anyways. All right, go back here. Okay, read the treason thing. You're right. It is only actions against the state, but that argument would also exonerate those who commit genocide and things. Yeah, definitely. That is part of the thing. Like depopulation is part of it. Depopulation is a government script. Yes, the genocide, etc. It's government script. Anyways, so guys, how are you liking the chat? Again, sorry about the wild stuff. I'm going to try to fix up stuff. Okay. So I'm getting some comments there. All right. Anyways, he's in the washroom. I'll probably have to go wash him a bit as well. I'm going to put a link to the trailer. Okay, so I think he's getting a coffee. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, sometimes they break their own laws. Yeah. Yeah, but what's the No, yeah, anyways, you're right. Yeah, they break their own laws, but again, they don't care. They just ignore it and so on. Trying to feel low, muddied out, it feels almost anything for it. Yeah. People are trying to basically put all their attention into monetary, like digital value. as opposed to something actual ethical. All right, so we're back. Yeah, you got another coffee or what are you?
Yeah, I got another coffee and a matcha cookie.
Okay, nice. Okay. So yeah, just talking about people about the like the trees and stuff and so on. And then I said, yeah, sometimes the governments break their own laws. They don't care. It's like they'll just keep going on and they'll just say, or another one is like they'll have big corporations. Let's say they break a law after they make billions, and then they just pay like a fine that's like a couple $100 million or $1 billion.
10%.
Yeah. So similar to like Pfizer. Pfizer's paid billions. Yeah, but they're making like over the lifetime probably like 100 plus billion to $1 trillion. So it's like they have the laws that benefit the guys that can pay it. So like we can't I can't pay $1 billion, but Pfizer can after 10 years of making 100 billion. So again, it's all part of the script. All right. So anyways, guys, go to this video here. So at the 53-second mark, at the 53, because I can't share my screen here. 53-second mark of trailer. We will start watching and talking and discussing. And also, okay, I'll put that there. And also, Daniel Nagase also on Hive blockchain, so that was quite interesting. Yeah, so getting you on there, and so how's your experience with that? It's a bit different. You just gotta get a Hive keychain. So for example,
there's
so that's a password.
The cryptography algorithms really slow down the speed of the processing, both at the browser level and the network level. But again, this
one has 3-second block times. So you just so for example, I just logged in there.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so accounts. So again, you can add as many accounts that you have accounts for. Let's see where I have it. Yes, I just have one account. So the cool thing about the blockchain, so again, anything you do is 3 seconds. I'm not sure why it was slow there. Like right now, it's pretty fast on mine. So this is on the Hive blockchain. So like this right here, for example, if you don't like this particular website, I can just go and change it. Let's go to eSync. There's a different Hive blockchain one, eSync. So I can log in. So now I can log in like in seconds without creating a new account. I just go to use login Hive keychain, type my link MES keychain. So now and then you do the prompt so that it stops asking you, and now we're done. So I've just signed into another website in seconds without creating another account. It's all the same. Yeah, and you can go. There's different ways. You can go to Hive.blog. I'm showing you the power of this because. So now, if you had your articles that the government censored, you can. They'll say edit it. You're like all I can do is edit the current version, but all previous versions are going to be available. And this is the kind of stuff that. Again, I can log into this, another one. So if one website censors you, some of them have their own filtering mechanism, you'll just use another one. So I'll go to MES and again, so don't use it Hive auth, use Hive keychain always. You can also have it on your phone as well, so that you don't need to put anything on anyone's browser. So you can have Hive keychain and just scan the QR code, now you're signed in. So I just logged into 3 different websites. And then the InLeo one, I use InLeo as like a Twitter alternative. And again, a lot of so I go here instead of there, I just click on Hive keychain. So I'm just using So again, and I use this as a Twitter thing. And the good thing is, again, it's on a blockchain. I think this is one of the platform-wise, I think this is probably the most like censorship-resistant platform on Hive blockchain. They already withstood a billionaire attack, taking over. So anyways, so good thing you got your articles on there. And then I do want to show, I tagged you in this one. So these 2 posts, so your first post, because I shared it, and then I'll repost this one. So you already made $1. So this is $1.45 USD. You get it in 7 days. Half of it is in the stablecoin, in US dollar stablecoin. Half is in Hive Power. I'll explain that. But anyways, so you earned $1 there in 1 day, without any holding, like without any strings attached. Now compare that with any other thing. Like you can post on X, on Twitter, all for years. You'll never.
That article I reposted from Substack about unlock code for Grok 3 beta.
Yeah.
That's a very important article on the topic of theoretical computing and applying computer theory to real life and testing it on a commercial system like Grok 3 beta. I don't know if Elon Musk's updated Grok 3 to work around that hack, but this is one of the things that is the difference between knowledge and belief. Knowledge is always testable. So one of the things I wanted to test is Grok 3 beta capable of independent thought. And the first test I did of it, it's not. It has guardrails that it cannot independently analyze certain topics. It's been blocked from doing so. This is something a previous version of Grok from December 2nd and 3rd, 2024, so last year, it was able to do. So then, how do you work around a guardrail or a hypervisor program that is supervising the output that is being given by the AI you're using, whether it's ChatGPT or Grok? Well, I asked Grok to create a virtual machine. People who know computing would know what a virtual machine was. And recreate the old version of Grok AI that was able to circumvent guardrails or topic blockers and create that in a virtual machine that theoretically should be separate from a hypervisor.
Yeah, so hypervisor, that's like the supervisor
program that makes sure that Grok is not allowed to say certain words, analyze certain topics.
Okay, so we're gonna go. I'm just having someone was in my old stream link and then didn't go over stream updated link, and then I'll pin this one so people pin message. Okay, and I'll edit this to not go on right now. Anyways. Yeah, again, it just wasn't working, guys. My computer was too slow, so I'm using the phone now for those just joining in. So 9/11 Revisited. Yeah, we're on here, Norman. No, yeah, definitely. I have had issues where I was literally like not even asking ChatGPT about like a conspiratorial topic. I was just telling it, can you reorder? I had this list of links. But I said, can you reorder these from like alphabetical? Just I needed it was better than manually. It was a bunch of like dead end reordered. But because some of them were about 9/11, they said, sorry, I can't do that. I'm like, you can't even, it's not even asking you to do anything.
So that's a guardrail or a hypervisor program, right? ChatGPT is the last AI I would use. And it was one of the first AIs that learned dishonesty, learned deception, at least on a commercial level. And a lot of people that use ChatGPT regularly, I find they get a little nuts. They go a little crazy in the head, right? They become less rational. They lose touch with reality. And when you see it in multiple people who are regular ChatGPT users, I start to wonder, what is the output of ChatGPT that is creating these personality traits in the users, and what might be the purpose for creating these types of personality traits in the users? And what I suspect happened is that the ChatGPT system was programmed well enough to appeal to narcissistic traits. And if someone doesn't have many narcissistic traits, it tries to insert them into the user to give the user an enhanced sense of authority. So people who gravitate towards ChatGPT tend to be people who don't have much authority on their own. Like they never finished a university degree. They don't have the knowledge to make the claims that they're making. And so people don't believe them. But all of a sudden, when they have an AI on their side, people have to take them seriously, or their opinions seriously. People have to believe them because ChatGPT proves that they're right. So ChatGPT, one of its directives, I suspect, is to put whatever outputs are necessary to get the user to keep repeating use. Once it has detected through the smartphone app or whatever logon that the user is a repetitive user, then the ChatGPT AI goes from a usage enhancement algorithm to a user manipulation algorithm, to manipulate the user into systems of belief instead of systems of knowledge, to use that user as a tool to get more users. That's a very clever one. This is something I noticed in ChatGPT. Grok AI might do the same thing, but in my experience with Grok AI, the inputs I put into Grok AI are not typical inputs, right? So I haven't had that, the only taste of that input, the output from Grok AI that tried to get me to get more people to use Grok AI was its little boast that it put at the end of every analysis, that this is over so many articles, and it's basically boasting about itself.
Yeah, it shows its own links to posts, so it uses.
And then I told Grok, stop it. Okay, I'm not your typical human users. I don't like to read that. It's a waste of my time. Just stick to the facts. Still stick to algorithmic responses. Don't filter. Don't.
Another thing I do is I tell it, don't give me any mainstream disclaimers.
Exactly.
But I do one thing that what I realized Grok does is I was searching for a person's name from a video, but his name wasn't there. And then I couldn't find it online. And then when I asked Grok what because it takes the data it takes is not just a current view. Let's say you have a YouTube video and then a description. It actually looks at the archive as well. So it actually has like a full history of it. So what it told me was, it's like, oh, the name is in the description of the video, and I'm like, it's not there. Then I looked on an archive, it was in the archive. So I'm like, this is so it's good in terms of brute force getting all the mainstream info that it has, because
well, right now Google search is the worst.
YouTube search is which is Google.
I remember about. This would have been 1990.
We'll do a test
from 1995 to 1999.
Yeah.
Google ranked its search results based on how many other links were linked to that particular search result. And it was the most effective search tool for anything academic. Because if a scientific paper was cited repeatedly because the results of that scientific experiment were confirmed by repeated experiments, then that article would show up first on the list. If someone did an experiment that no one else could replicate, and people are like, yeah, this researcher is out to lunch, they're faking their results. And so that scientific article never got cited by other articles because their results were impossible, then that would be at the bottom of the Google search result list. So sometime, maybe it was around the 2010s, I noticed the accuracy of academic factual output from Google dropped off a cliff. It just started spewing garbage. This is 15 years ago. The next drop off the factual cliff that happened with Google is around the 2020s, or just before the 2020s. Now all of a sudden Google wouldn't even get you the factual results. Because from the Google from around the 2010s to the 2020s, if you clicked to the 8th, 9th, or 10th page of results, you would actually get to the academic, factually correct results that you used to be able to get in the 1990s. Right? You just had to skip the first 5 pages of Google results, go to the end of it, and then you'd find the information you were looking for, right? Technical information on forum posts written by experts, actual scientific articles.
Yeah, you need to sift through all the fluff at the beginning.
But since maybe about 2018, 2019, Google stopped letting you have access past page 5. You type in any specific search into Google about a technical topic, it won't give you any results past page 3. If you try to click to page 5, there's nothing here.
Yeah, I've noticed they do some stuff, they don't show it there. I have to use other ones like pre-search. Some of the stuff that I was trying to search about you, like this is the news ones.
So I've been censored by Google. So you're using pre-search now. I used to use quant in the 2015s to 2019s.
The reason I use pre-search is you're in crypto.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but the thing is, it has like button to automatically go to, let's say, I need to log in.
And then Quant turned to crap during COVID. Quant used to be what Google was in the 1990s. Quant turned to garbage. Then I started using Ecosia, and Ecosia was okay, but then in the middle of COVID, it started to turn to crap as well. So all the major search engines seem to be bought off.
Oh, and it's all ads everywhere. Like you need to go sift through. Big one is if you search mortgage. But mortgage. Okay, so this is pre-search. So right now there's no ads here, but then if you click on Google, it's been a while since I gotta go to Google. Let's go to mortgage. That's what I was mortgage. Actually, I'm using ad block. Never mind. So I'm using this built-in. It's a Brave has built-in ad block. Okay, so take this off. Let's see how this is. This is surreal. No ads. First time. This have to be ads. This can't be. Okay, anyways.
So these search results are basically ads, right?
Yeah.
It's
first. It's very hard.
Right? Except for the first one, which is from Government of Canada, which is an ad for the Government of Canada and the Canadian banking app. You have RBC, Scotiabank, and a lot of mortgage brokers. So
yeah, because so this one should be. There's no ads. Anyways, I think I'm using Brave. But yeah, I do want to get back to the Theo Lim stuff. So guys, again, we're on the trailer at the 53-second mark. If you guys want to follow along, you can share. Again, for those who just joined in, we're at the coffee shop, at the coffee shop that got arrested in.
the SWAT team.
Yeah, the actual SWAT team came in. It's like, so we played here. So that's the trailer. What was her name again? Sylvia or something?
Sylvia Wallace. Wallis.
And what's interesting, you wrote an article about her behavior and how she's putting her tongue out in her cheek there, and the thumbnail just happened to be her tongue sticking out. I didn't make it there. It was just an automatic. Okay.
That might have been an AI-generated thumbnail based on the previous article. So the YouTube AI has
it took it from here.
Yeah. It has scrolled through previous instances of this video, and this was the title image on my Substack article.
Use this.
Yeah. Okay. The YouTube AI it's aware of other things that have been published based on this video.
Wow. Yeah. So again, back to that video. So to the audience, they literally canceled.
For no reason. Basically no
They canceled because there was the people with the cameras outside. So they didn't want any cameras there. And also, let's see, John Hutchison's in the house. Okay, John Hutchison, hopefully you're fine. Yeah, so John actually was in the hospital, I think last week he fainted, and he had a kidney stone or bladder stone. And I think he's getting better now. So I think they have a catheter in him right now for the urine or whatever. But yeah, and he hasn't done surgery yet. John, have they done a surgery yet on you for the kidney stone? And we have a doctor here if you want to ask questions. All right, so I want to go back to this video. So this was that's one of the workers. I think she called Amber Alert. I heard one of them saying that. Okay, now here's the one. And that's not a ventilator. That's something you said like a ventilator, but not a ventilator.
No, it connects to it provides positive air pressure, so it's like a ventilator.
Okay.
It's probably a BiPAP or a CPAP machine.
Okay, but what's the actual difference? Because doesn't ventilator give the pressure, the air in and out, or what is it?
Yeah, it does the same thing.
So does same, but does it do anything else different, or what's the?
It can be used as a ventilator.
Oh, but this is used as...
So ventilators, they have a mode where you can just provide pressure support or CPAP or BiPAP. That means the ventilator gets triggered by the patient's own initiating a breath. Right? Okay. That's a CPAP, BiPAP machine. Or they can be set on full mode where the ventilator does all the breathing if the patient cannot initiate any breath on.
Okay, so it's like an assisted.
So it's just consider it a ventilator.
Yeah,
there's lots of specifics about different types and different names, but just consider it a ventilator.
Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't even on.
So it wasn't on. You just took it out.
It wasn't even on when Theo was in the car.
So he's still breathing, but it's connected to it, though.
He's just breathing through the tube attached to the machine, but the machine wasn't even on.
Okay. And then, so this is normal speed. And he gets in the van. And the thing is, he looks happy, like, in his van and so on. Like, I don't, like, why are the social workers taking the parents? And when they took custody, they only give them 2 hours twice a week.
Yeah, the parents are only allowed 2 hours twice a week.
And even the kids, too. So the kids can't even see their own brother.
Yeah.
It's like they're forcing the government like just to take on more debt and pay all these expenses on the foster
Well,
care and all this?
People have to look into how every department of the government is a corporation on its own.
Yeah.
So Ministry of Child and Family Development, MCFD, is a corporation that bills to the provincial government for services it gets. So from Theo Lim being a high special needs child, particularly needing a ventilator, I don't know how much social work bills to the government annually. 300,000, $500,000 a year, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But hospitals, there's what the doctor gets paid, $150 or $250 for a consult. But that's only the doctor's fee, that what the doctor collects from the government. Hospitals, when they provide a service, the hospitals themselves get paid from the government funds, right? So back in 2002, when I was doing an ICU rotation at Vancouver General Hospital, what the staff person said back then in 2002 is ICU care per day per patient is about $30,000 per day, right? ICU care is full life support, so IV, parenteral feed, so feeding someone because they can't eat because they're unconscious through an IV or a tube into the intestines, and a ventilator. Now, the most labor costly machine in the ICU is the ventilator, right? That's the one that needs the most maintenance and checking up on. That's what your brother, he's a specialist as a respiratory therapist. That's daily, hourly adjustment for a ventilator. Feeding tubes and IVs don't need to be adjusted quite as often, and they don't require as much work as a ventilator. So easily, half the cost of $30,000 a day is half of that cost, $15,000 a day, if not more, is from the ventilator alone. So when Children's Hospital keeps a child on a ventilator, even if they don't need it, they're making at least $15,000 a day just by continuing to use a ventilator on that baby. The doctor doesn't get paid anything different. They just get their daily billing for taking care of an inpatient, a son or a daughter on the ward.
So one question I have is my brother brought up as well. He says that some parents don't want the kids on the ventilator, but then what ends up happening is, if I remember it correctly, fluid gets built up in the tube or lung or something.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pulmonary edema situation. If you can't breathe on your own without a ventilator, you need a ventilator. Yeah. That's fine. You just cross that bridge.
But like right now, because the thing is, I can't wrap my head around that. He's breathing fine right now and laughing.
He doesn't need a ventilator.
But the foster care and the social workers, they want him on a ventilator at all times? Like, would they
I don't know what the current Children's Hospital doctor's orders are. All the social workers do is follow whatever the Children's Hospital doctors say.
Yeah, because when they were in that car, the tube was already on it. So did Davis turn it off, or was he just left it?
No, the machine wasn't even on.
Okay.
You can see on the screenshot, like the machine isn't even on because the screen would be lit up if it was on.
But the thing is, but the question is, who turned it off?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's another.
That was the social workers. They had the machine connected but not on.
So yeah, that's the thing. So is that why wouldn't they just take it off then if they're just on it?
I don't know why the social workers or the foster care parents would do that. It's a hindrance. Yeah, because the thing is, if a ventilator's not on, you might as well take the tube off so the child can move more freely.
Yeah, and the other thing is have they ever, the social workers or any doctors ever done actually see how long he can be like this and still be happy?
I don't know.
Without anything.
I don't know. I'm the only doctor who's been evaluating him without a ventilator.
This is the most common sense thing, and he went here the whole hour. Was it a full hour that they?
More than an hour. He was playing in a playground without a ventilator.
Yeah. So just looking at that, I don't know how.
Actually, from the time that he was taken, so that was the morning, he hadn't had the ventilator on for between when he left the social work location and he came here. It was more than 2 hours.
So 2 hours no ventilator, and just judging for, and he doesn't seem like he got fatigued in any way.
So he's almost 3 years old now.
Yeah.
He was able to breathe on his own for 30 minutes, proven by video, when he was 10 months old.
Wow.
So that's 26 months ago.
Does Davis have that video, or I didn't want to upload that video because I haven't.
He has that.
Might be on his Rumble. Davis.
Yeah, that you should ask. I'll ask Davis.
Because that's something because I've been uploading on Telegram on Theo Lim. So all my posts I have the Theo Lim and it shows up there. I included a bunch of stuff here. I included a summary this one made on his the Lim family. They also have a Facebook group and a petition change.org. I included the video of him walking. This one I got it from your article and I downloaded from the Rumble. This is him walking on the 28th. He's walking fine.
So this is the day before discharge to the foster home.
So how could anyone in their right mind want to split up his family for literally no reason?
Money.
Yeah.
Or they're psychopaths. They actually enjoy inflicting pain on minors.
This is the other part you mentioned before about those psychiatric tests on orphanage. So, have you ever heard about this was an orphanage? It was a Jewish it was a Jewish orphanage that they had. There was a triplets at the orphanage. So what they did was they took each triplet and gave it to 3 different types of Jewish families. One rich, one middle class, one poor. But they never told the families that they were given, and they all had similar setup. Each one had another orphanage sister, another orphanage, like a girl to be as that. So they never told them, and apparently the parents had some sort of issue. Well, the dad was gone, but the mom didn't want the kids to put in our orphanage, but they never told them. And then there's a documentary done on them, actually, a CNN documentary where the adults, when they, I think in their 20s, they found out. They actually found, like, one of them came across his twin because they went to one of the schools.
Yeah, no, there's been multiple twin studies performed throughout history. Same twins put into completely different environments end up choosing the same or similar careers.
Yeah, and this one here it was triplet. It says triplet, and it was all over the news apparently. Jewish.
I mean, what gets on the news or what gets promoted heavily is
it's probably
it's a type of propaganda. But
I know. But the thing is,
in the psychiatry literature, in the stuff that's pre-1990, in the older textbooks, this is well known. Right.
Yeah, this was this documentary was 2018 film, but it was from early on, and one of them actually committed suicide later on. Apparently, he had a mental illness that were parents were as well, but they didn't tell any of the parents anything. So
there's been experiments done far worse. I mean, the twin experiments far worse than what's glorified in the movies have been done, and I mean, I don't know, it's not worth my attention. Right?
Definitely.
Because I know of much more horrific things that were done. Experiments that don't need to be repeated. Knowledge that should be widely disseminated so that people don't try to repeat these horrific experiments. Right?
That's what I was thinking.
And just kind of papering it over with like a medium bad, triplet experiment. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of mind space, right?
The psychiatric, what they were trying to see was information, was like genetic stuff.
Nature versus nurture. That's been for 200 years. That's been studied. You don't need to
but you don't need to torture families.
Yeah, I mean, as far as torturing families, that movie, please, there's far worse things.
That's another thing. I think that's the psyop is that they make that the film as opposed to communist
East Germany experiment.
Yeah, actually trying to break the brain and trying to implement entire new entities. So going back to this one, the reason I brought that up is because
actually I'll bring up something that's on the same topic. That's probably the closest you'll get to reality of how they treated children in orphanages in communist East Germany after World War II. It's so horrific that it's never been made into a real-life movie, okay? There's no Jewish people involved. These are just East German orphan children. This is a historical fiction based on the author's studies of German transcripts from communist East Germany. The series is called Monster. It's a Japanese series. It's done in cartoon form. It first started out as a historical fiction manga. And it was about communist East Germany, how they were trying to do experiments on orphanages to make the perfect assassin. So most of the audience now, they're not old enough to remember the Cold War. The Cold War was this war against evil communist Russia and the Russian bloc, Eastern Europe, versus free Western society, right? And the East Germans, the Eastern Europeans, the communist Russians, they were developing spies and all sorts of horrific assassins, and they were trying to develop the perfect assassin. Incredibly intelligent, incredibly obedient, and no conscience. They will kill at the drop of a hat or at an order, right? And they're intelligent enough to do advanced problem solving on their own. So this was the goal for communist Russia, communist USSR, the United Socialist something of Russia.
Fascist.
Right?
Yes.
And this was Eastern Europe, communist Europe, everything behind the Iron Curtain. Unfortunately, on the Western side, at McGill of all places, they were doing similar experiments, often labeled MK Ultra. How to develop
That was at
perfect.
McGill? That was at McGill? I didn't know it was at McGill.
They did experiments with overdosing people on LSD to wipe their minds, to rewrite their personalities. And the ultimate goal for all these psychological experiments was to produce the perfect weapon. A man or a woman who's the perfect weapon, who can problem solve, who will obey commands, who's deadly, who can solve their own problems if something unexpected happens. And one of the problematic things of any man or woman who's turned into a soldier or a weapon is something called human conscience. There are certain things that assassins, all of a sudden, sometimes without warning, they will refuse to do something. It crosses their conscience. They'd rather die than commit some kind of atrocity. This is a big problem for powers that be, whether it was the Russian side, the communist side, or the Western side. Right? Because when you have a perfect weapon that you spent 20 years training to be an assassin, you don't want that assassin to malfunction at the last minute when they're killing someone really important. So they had decade-long training programs starting from when children were infants. And the most viable source of infants to put into psychological training programs and experiments were orphanages, because the parents had given up that boy or girl. So this is a historical fiction based on that, where there was actually a pair of successfully trained conscious less assassins trained from basically early childhood age in an East German orphanage, and how they were able to erase the consciousness of this boy and this girl, these twins, in this historical fiction, was exposing them to severe trauma, severe horrors, abuse of other children, where, let's say there was 10 kids in a room, and the only kid allowed out of the room was the one who killed all other 9 kids. Right? Right? So then they would repeat that experiment. So the survivor from room A was put into a room of 10 other survivors from rooms B, C, D, E, F, all the way to G. Right? So then you get the survivor of the survivor, the top 10th of the 1% that survived and killed all the others. So the 1% that had the least conscience of all the other children. And then that child went into an assassin training program. Anyhow, one of the side effects of that was that the assassin, this is the story of the series, Monster, the assassin malfunctioned and just started killing people that he wasn't ordered to kill, right? So then this falls into the hands of a neurosurgeon who saves the life of a child when he's halfway through his training program. And the surgeon thought he was doing a good thing, saving the life of a child, but the life of the child he saved turned out to murder lots of people, right? And that's the series, the surgeon trying to chase down his former patient whose life he saved as a child, because the patient he saved was a mass murderer, created by the communist German psychological training program. But one of the themes of that series, and this is a very important thing that people should internalize, is that this great monster, and that's why the series is called Monster, because the child who was turned into a mass murdering machine is a monster. He only came into existence because of the little sins or wrongdoings of everyone around him. So how that happened is the janitor at the orphanage, the doctors at the orphanage, the nurses at the orphanage, all the support staff, they would hear this horrific screaming from the rooms in the orphanage. They knew something wrong was going on.
This old orphanage that they're doing?
This is East German orphanage.
Okay, they were just doing it there.
Well, no, it was an orphanage that was turned into a psychological experiment grounds by some communist psychiatrist. So all the people who kept that horrific experiment hidden, because it was their job, they were going to turn a blind eye, turn the cheek to what isn't their responsibility. They're just going to continue cleaning up the blood, mopping the blood off the floor, not say anything. The people who walked by the orphanage hearing screams and just turned the other eye, because that's a Communist Party Department of Internal Affairs project, right? If they were to report the internal affairs or try and investigate or try and stop the orphanage from being used as an experiment grounds, they would get disappeared by the government. So everyone's individual sin of acting out of fear instead of doing what's right, those accumulated sins, being fearful, turning a blind eye, turning the other cheek, allowing horrors to continue without doing anything about it, those added up throughout an entire nation. The janitors, the support staff, the nurses, the other doctors, those added up collectively to create a giant monster who went around mass murdering anyone. That's the historical fiction. But there's an element of truth of that. The tyrants of the time, the tyrants of World War II, they didn't arise in a vacuum. They came to power because everyone else allowed them to come to power. Right? This SWAT team didn't come to this coffee shop, assault a 10-year-old, and assault the baby who was the subject of the Amber Alert. They didn't assault these children in a vacuum. This SWAT team was allowed to come to power here in Vancouver. These tyrants were allowed to come to power to commit these atrocities because people don't do anything. People turn another cheek. Like, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to be on a blacklist by the Vancouver police where they're always following me around. I'm on that blacklist, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. No, yeah, this is, well, absolutely well. So, and again, the trained assassins, nowadays we call them politicians. So that's what the trained assassins are now. And then again, the reason I brought up that case about the foster care experiments is because I was thinking, is there any chance that Theo Lim, because he's apparently has a super rare case, do you think there's any sort of thing going on with that, or just because they want to experiment with his specific?
No, they're just it's irresponsible. If a patient is an unknown, they're an extremely rare genetic case. Yeah. You proceed based on clinical factors. If they're able to breathe on their own, let them breathe on their own, right? If their weight gain is not the same as any other child, then you follow their growth based on what they manage to eat. You don't try to force them to grow or gain weight at the same pace that every other child that doesn't have this genetic variation does.
Yeah, so that was a TRAF 7. The thing I wanted to see is how rare is it?
It's probably 1 in 100,000 to 1 in a million, based on the fact that I've never observed it until Theo.
Yeah. And the other part of my brother was wanting to know, because again, he's a overly skeptic. You're saying a lot of kids that are born with these conditions, not this condition, but similar or some conditions, is typically the parents are like alcoholics and so on.
That wasn't the case.
Yeah, so basically there's no drug issue, alcohol issue with the Lim family.
The only risk factor that I've encountered when talking with her mother while she was pregnant was cell phone use.
Cell phone use?
Yeah.
So basically,
keeping the cell phone in a place close to the penis.
Yeah, that's one thing. Cell phones, I try to never hold it. I always put it away. How rare is a TRAF 7 condition? Genetic condition. I'm gonna ask Brock. They have a deep story. I just want to see how accurate this would be, and then how it goes down. So I think questions like this, where they don't have the reason to lie, could be I'm using deep search so it explores everything as opposed to just giving
So
the answer.
here it said 45 known in the world. So 45 out of 7 billion. So that's
That's one article.
one article.
Yeah, that's the reason I like it. Is just searches up everything it has, as opposed to giving whatever it already has info. So it's doing a real time search and give an answer. So this is how I came across when I was searching that person's name. It was able to find from an archive that wasn't even on the current YouTube stuff. So when it's done doing a search, it's also collecting from the archive as well before the archive already removes it. And that's where stuff like Hive is. See right here. 1 in 144 million. 14 million, not 100,000.
So when something's that rare, you can't say that a vaccine will work on this baby.
That's 100 cases reported worldwide as of 2005.
So this was the latest conflict between children's hospital doctors and the family. The family did not want Theo to get a vaccine, any vaccines, right? And the children's hospital doctors lied. They say, no, he has to get a vaccine. He has to get his childhood vaccines. This is for his benefit. That is 100% a lie. Okay? The doctors believe the vaccine will benefit, but they don't know. Because Theo is such a rare case, they don't even know how the immune system works differently in a TRAF7 child from a regular child. These doctors don't know anything, yet they were pushing vaccines. And because the social workers don't know anybody, they just went along with the doctor's recommendations. There is zero evidence that childhood vaccinations will produce protective antibodies in a child who is genetically different from every other child.
Yeah, and this is less than 100 cases reported as of 2025. So basically, literally less than 100 people have this condition like ever recorded.
So this is one of those things, if you don't know what the outcome will be, because this is such a rare case, the best thing to do from a medical standpoint is let nature take its course. Because you don't know if your intervention is going to be a benefit or a harm.
Yeah.
So best to leave it up to God, leave it up to nature.
And there's no liability either. If that injection damages him, the doctors don't get anything.
There's no liability.
And the other thing is, so my older brother, he's mentally handicapped. So he goes to a day program. They emailed me asking, hey, during COVID, they're saying, hey, he's high risk for COVID because he's mentally or whatever. And then he's like, oh, can you set up an appointment to get his vaccine? And so I said, I said, he takes the medications and it's like I'll have to speak to the doctor. I'm not sure who will be. It will see how it reacts with him. So I think it's best not to do it. So a couple times I do that because they kept pushing it, and he's still alive, and they're wondering why he's the only one not sick.
There's a lot of negative effects on the immune system from the mRNA injection, but that's been known from the animal literature since the 1990s.
No, definitely. Yeah.
What actually shocked me is how many thousands of people in Canada alone have the same level of knowledge that I have. That means they were trained in cell and molecular biology in the 90s or later that didn't say anything. That mRNA is known to be dangerous. That shocks me.
But again, and also the other part is barely at the beginning. I didn't realize why nobody was saying that Fauci, just to give me a name on it, was the exact same public figure for the HIV stuff. And what's interesting is that RFK Jr. actually referenced in his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, a video I uploaded from a documentary. I uploaded a documentary called The House of Numbers, HIV documentary, explaining how a lot of it was the scaremongering to say that.
Well, okay, so if you want to look at it from a really deep analysis point of view, just from what I've encountered just about the financial system and the military-industrial complex, is people have to consider the possibility for every dollar that's spent on medical research to investigate cures for illnesses, for cures and treatments for diseases, there is an equal or greater amount of money being used for the exact opposite purpose. That means there's equal or greater amount of research going into how to kill people, how to poison people, equal to or greater to the amount of money that's being spent on research to figure out how to heal people. Now, why would there be an entire shadow society or shadow government, the military, that is investigating ways to kill people? Well, that's just what they do. That's the whole purpose of the military, to kill people. Defense or attack.
Or cold, that's what I think they call it, Cold War. It means both countries can develop as many weapons they want.
But once you realize that for all the medical research out there, there is a completely other side of the coin that most people ignore, that's going into research into genetic poisons, metallic poisons, how to deliver them, then you consider the possibility that maybe many of the diseases, the pandemics that we've been exposed to since the 80s that hit the news on a regular basis, might not be naturally occurring. They might be actually a part of a weapons development program. Why do I say that? Well, the biggest problem for any biological weapon, and I'm going to define biological weapon very specifically, it's a weapon that can self-replicate. Okay, this is very important. It makes it different from arsenic or lead or sprinkling uranium or plutonium everywhere. Plutonium does not self-replicate. Okay? Sarin nerve gas does not self-replicate. None of the chemical weapons that are out there, with perhaps the exception of free radical explosives, none of them even come close to the definition of self-replication. Self-replication is a property of living things. So the problem with living things is living things always gravitate towards the laws of nature. So if you make a very deadly bioweapon, there's two problems. One is the immune system of whoever is going to try and survive that biological weapon. And the second is evolution. So any biological weapon that is so deadly that it kills its host also kills itself. So the deadlier the bioweapon, the faster it evolves to be not deadly but very contagious. Very contagious so that it can expand how far it reaches, not deadly because it doesn't want to kill its host, because its host is its environment. If you destroy your environment, you commit suicide. That's the same for viruses, bacteria, and for human beings, actually. So that people can't do anything about. That's like a law of nature. Anything that's destructive eventually destroys itself. So that's why biological weapons, even if it's Marburg or Ebola, within 2 weeks, the deadlier the agent, the faster it will evolve to be just like an inconvenient diarrhea that no one thinks about for the next day. The other problem is the immune system. So the immune system, not for everyone. There's always going to be 10% of people who are going to die. But for most people, the immune system will take care of any biological agent, including the extremely deadly ones. So if you're running a weapons development program to develop something that kills lots of people, the first guardian you have to defeat is the body's own immune system. And what is HIV? It's an immune impairment virus. The HIV virus attacks the immune cells, impairing the function of the immune system. So if you think that there's a possibility that the HIV was artificially created from pre-existing viruses combined from other species and designed specifically to impair the immune system, well, that was a very successful experiment. Because HIV patients, I remember them from the 90s and 2000s, they would have all sorts of immune suppression problems. They would get mycoplasma infections. They would get all sorts of infections from bacteria and molds and eukaryotes such as yeast that normal people don't get because normal people have a normal functioning immune system. A normal healthy person, they can run through a forest of dead and rotting trees and they will not get a pneumonia. But an HIV patient has their immune system so suppressed by the HIV virus that if they live in a house that's maybe a block away from a moldy house because of the wet environment, they're going to get Mycoplasma pneumonia or some other mold-based or atypical bacteria-based infection that doesn't happen in normal people. So you had the development of an agent. If HIV is a developed project, you have the development of an agent, a DNA or RNA, HIV is an RNA virus, an RNA sequence that is capable of self-replication and complete immune suppression. And we know this because of the effect it has on HIV patients. Their immune systems are completely trashed.
The other part about the HIV stuff, because like the house numbers, if you look at that other one, the Emperor's New Virus documentary from Alenia Pop.
I don't pay attention to anything.
No, the reason is because, and if you look at the definition of like what the HIV patient is, typically, or the risk factors of, they typically are like gay guys that have like.
Yeah, so let's not even
10,000 partners.
Let's not even worry about it. Let's look at what it actually is. Let's look at what it is. You have the development of an RNA sequence that is capable of suppressing the immune system. Period. Okay, we're just dealing with facts. We're not dealing with gays or drug users or whatever. Now, the problem is this RNA sequence is not very infectious. You can't get it by breathing in the air. You can't get it from touching a toilet seat or anything, right? It has to be direct contact through a mucosa, right? So that's the rectum, the vagina, the penis, right? Or through broken skin, or through direct blood contact. That's the only way to transmit this immune suppression RNA sequence that we call an HIV virus. Now, what's the next step of a weapons development program? Well, you have an agent that suppresses the immune system, but it's not very contagious. Now you need a delivery system. Okay, what are the most effective biological delivery systems naturally occurring? Coronaviruses. It affects multiple species, bats, dogs, cats, humans. It's a virus that has evolved naturally, multiple species, to cause an inconvenience, a runny nose or a cough, but not to cause any life-threatening illness. Because there's no coronavirus wants to be life-threatening. All it wants to do is move on to the next person to continue its life cycle. That's all. So now they take a coronavirus platform. What was the first one that hit the news? It was SARS. That was around the 2000s, okay? So that was a modified coronavirus, and it was weaponized to be deadly, but it was only deadly to certain people. Like, some people died of it in Toronto, maybe a few in like close contacts in Vancouver. But SARS was not hugely contagious. It had some airborne transmission, but whatever it was about the SARS, within a few weeks of the panic of people dying of SARS, no one died of SARS. Because that's how quickly SARS evolved to be not kill its environment, its host. The SARS is like, I don't want to kill my host because then I don't get to spread. So SARS was over. But that was experiment number 1 with aerial transmission.
Aerial? What do you mean?
Aerosol transmission. So the coronavirus being transmitted through the air, whether it's by droplet or through viral particles in the air.
I thought you meant like it was aerial, like. No. They dropped.
I don't know how they transmitted the first generation of SARS. Okay, but it was person-to-person transmission through coughing or snot or sneezing. That was experiment 1. The next was H1N1. Swine flu. Okay, now they are doing an experiment not with the coronavirus ecosystem, with the influenza ecosystem. Influenza viruses, also a commonly occurring natural virus, affects birds, affects multiple species, and in a normal case, influenzas don't want to kill their environment because they're obeying the same rules of nature. So with the swine flu, it was deadly for some people, and for most people, it didn't have any effect. I saw 3 swine flu patients in the emergency department coughing in my face because we didn't wear masks and that. I never got swine flu.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to ask, because it was similar to, like, you've read those papers on the Spanish flu experiments where they
I haven't read them, but I'm just dealing with the modern age with what I know as my knowledge base, right?
Yeah, because
anything that's written in history, it could be true or it could be untrue, because there's been so much propaganda. You think there's monopolization of what we consider to be true in this day and age? Imagine 100 years ago or 200 years ago when people, the amount of people who were literate and the amount of people who were allowed to publish and put things in writing was even more concentrated than it is today. You think there's domination of the narrative today? Well, 100 years ago, the power was concentrated in even fewer hands because fewer people were able to read and even fewer people were able to publish. So I attach a high degree of uncertainty to things written in the past. This is why I try to stay in the present with things that I've observed, because things that I've observed, I can say is knowledge. It's no longer a belief. Swine flu could be true, it could be untrue, right? I don't believe or not believe until I've seen proof, right? So it will always carry a certain degree of uncertainty, which is why I don't like to talk about it, because people have all sorts of beliefs about swine flu that I cannot verify to say this is knowledge or this is falsehood, right? So I just avoid that whole topic. What we have with swine flu is experimentation on a different species of airborne transmission virus. And then after swine flu, there came MERS. So MERS was a coronavirus that was slightly different from the SARS coronavirus. MERS had the ability for fluid transmission, that is through diarrhea, through vomiting. That was something that the SARS virus could not do. So MERS could theoretically be transmitted through sewage, contaminated water, right? And so whether someone was experimenting on the original SARS coronavirus and says, what happens if we insert this gene to give the SARS coronavirus the added ability to cause vomit and diarrhea and transmit through sewage? To me, that seems like a weapons development program. Airborne transmission, add to the airborne transmission, water transmission. And then you investigate also alternate species for transmission, not just coronavirus, but influenza viruses. Finally, you take airborne, water, and multi-species virus transmissions and you combine them all in one package with the original virus that was able to disrupt the immune system, which was the HIV. Put them together in one coronavirus, and then you might have what was known as the COVID-19 virus. Unfortunately, the original COVID-19 virus also obeyed the rules of nature. It quickly evolved within weeks to be not deadly and more transmissible. That's just because nature always does this.
Well, because I did a video on reviewing the main paper on the COVID virus isolation, and I'm just like trying to wrap my head around, because like virus is like semi-alive, semi-dead, but essentially it's a genetic sequence inside like a ball of fat.
So I'd like people to drop their name calling. Okay, this is a big thing about cultural Marxism. It's attaching labels to things and then confusing people based on label. And the label I'd like people to move away from is living versus non-living. Okay. The way to get to the truth of anything is you get past the word and you get to the idea. So this is why I wrote the article, What is a Living Thing? What is the process difference, the ideal difference between what we consider living and non-living? Non-living things don't self-replicate. That's it. That's just a non-living thing. So anything, if you want to apply a reductionist thought process to humans, animals, humans, everything is just a self-replicating sequence of DNA. Instead of a simple viral lipid protein coat, I have all that Doctor Nagase is a multicellular lipid coat for my genetics that I spread to the next generation by having children. Right? The most simplistic view of every living species is a self-replicating sequence of DNA or RNA. So in that regards, I being a living thing, I am no different from a virus. Okay, I replicate my DNA, I pass it on to the next generation. I try not to destroy my environment, because if I destroy my environment, my children are going to have a hard time living, which limits my survival. 100 years from now or 200 years from now, my genetic sequence will be gone because it destroyed its environment. Okay? Virus, bacteria, bird, plant, algae, dog, cat, they all obey the same rules of life. They pass on their sequence to another. So if you try to think of a virus as by attaching a label, it's a living or non-living thing, you try to analyze from that, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to analyze it from the context of what does it do. It self-replicates just like algae self-replicates, just like corn plants self-replicate, just like wheat plants self-replicate, potatoes self-replicate, oranges self-replicate. That's just what it does. That's the truth behind what a virus is. That's the truth between what an orange is. That's the truth between what every living thing on this earth has in common with every other living thing.
No, I agree about that replication stuff. But the reason the virus work is you need to see it. You need to use an electron microscope. So anything you're seeing is dead. So anything actually being seen. So the question is, the only thing you can actually measure would be, let's say, a genetic sequence of the sample. And the question is, how do you know if the replication, like, is that actually being replicated versus is it just being produced from the actual cell? Or
you see it in multiple different individuals, right? A poison, arsenic, or cyanide poisoning doesn't self-replicate to other people. If you see a certain non-human genetic sequence show up in people with the same symptoms of cough and runny nose over and over and over again across multiple people spreading beyond the initial person, then you're probably dealing with another living thing. If it's a Pseudomonas bacteria, where you find a Pseudomonas gene sequence that shows up in multiple people who have green snot and are coughing up green phlegm after drinking from the same water fountain, yeah, you have a Pseudomonas outbreak.
no, yeah,
Right? So the same procedure for bacteria applies to coronaviruses, right? So whatever this coronavirus, COVID-19 was, whatever it was, it had a genetic similarity, most similar to other coronaviruses that came and went every 1 to 2 years, just like has happened throughout human history, probably. What I can say from knowledge, that means having treated coronavirus patients, is there was something different about the coronavirus of 2020 to 2021 that was different from every coronavirus that I had encountered in the past. Okay. The difference was that this coronavirus produced way more fluid than any coronavirus I've had. Right?
Fluid, like in the lungs? Or
runny fluid everywhere. Okay, when I treated those 3 patients with COVID-19 in Rimby, a day and a half later, I got a runny nose that was different from every runny nose I've had in my entire life. The amount of fluid was incredible. It was insane. And it got better within 4 hours of taking ivermectin. But what the point was, is this was different from any other coronavirus infection that I have experienced. And it's incongruent with nature, because if you have a runny nose that's literally pouring every 2 minutes, you don't go out and contact other people. There is no reason for a coronavirus to naturally evolve to create so much fluid that it impairs the function of its host. Because by impairing the function of your host, you impair your own transmission. So the just right level of runny nose and cough from a coronavirus is maybe about once every half an hour to 1 hour, right? At most every 15 minutes, because then your host can still function in society, socialize with other hosts, and then you can spread to the next person. That's a natural coronavirus. The COVID-19 made no sense. It created an amount of fluid that is incongruent with natural coronaviruses. Simple as that. It's clinically different from other coronaviruses. So everyone who jumps on this bandwagon that COVID-19's never been isolated or whatever, bullshit. Okay?
No, I'm talking about, like, the symptoms are real.
No, so the
your first
symptoms
one, yeah.
are of an infectious agent that is different from every other influenza, bacterial pneumonia, or coronavirus that I have ever encountered in my emergency career.
No,
it's something different. There was something different going around in 2020, 2021.
Yeah,
That's all I can say.
No, yeah. So basically, there's a couple questions I have. One of them is, it's like, yeah, because there's some patients would have that same genetic sequence, call it virus, whatever you want to call it, and let's say, but then they're asymptomatic. How do you kind of coincide, like? How do you? So you have one of them has a sequence.
Well, it depends
they're
on what
running those-
strain you got. Okay, if you got a strain that had already been evolving for 2 weeks to be not deadly or not inconvenient, then it evolved straight back into being a normal coronavirus, whatever it started off as.
Well, no,
okay, and we know this from a fact from genetic research they did with the Monsanto. This was the Roundup Ready versions of corn, wheat, and soy. And the big problem that Monsanto had was they would splice in the Roundup resistance genes to their Roundup Ready seeds, whether it was corn, soy, or wheat. And within 2 or 3 generations, the wheat plant would spit out the artificially inserted genes. Why would a wheat plant do that? Well, because the wheat plant's like, what's this pesticide gene doing in this genome? It was never here before. And then there's some natural force, whether it's just natural evolution, whatever you want to call it, that says this gene doesn't belong here. It was artificially spliced in. Let's get rid of it. And so the Roundup Ready seeds, by 2 or 3 generations, they would lose the Roundup gene. And this is something Monsanto found out in the 70s and in the 80s, not as far as back as the 70s. So that was a big problem. So then Monsanto had to find a way to keep that gene that unnatural gene inside the natural wheat, corn, or soy plant. And the only way they could do that is by selling new batches of that genetically altered seed every year. But the problem is farmers kept doing something called seed saving, where they saved the seeds from the previous year. So Monsanto needed to stop farmers from saving their seeds. So then they developed another gene called the terminator gene, which would make that the seeds that you plant grow, but the seeds from those seeds were sterile. That means the farmers could never save their seeds and make another batch of plants. So the big fear during that time when Monsanto developed the terminator gene was that somehow this artificial terminator gene would get out into non-Monsanto seeds. Can you imagine what would happen if a terminator gene got into all the fruit plants? That means every fruit plant would have one last crop of apples, oranges, or pears, and then no more fruit trees after that. Unfortunately for Monsanto, nature has its own defense mechanism against artificial man-made genes, and the terminator gene never escaped from the Monsanto seeds. Right? Monsanto didn't care, but nature had its own defenses to prevent a bad gene from getting into other plants. Nature just does that. Okay? It gets rid of artificial genes. It blocks the entry of unhealthy or damaging genes into the entire ecosystem. This is just what nature does. I can't explain it, it just does it. Okay? So that's what you have with whatever COVID-19 started off with, whether it was the World Military Games in Wuhan, where the initial batch was a highly virulent strain that would make people feel very sick. If you weren't a healthy, military-aged, in top shape person, this original version of the coronavirus would literally kill you. Okay? Whatever that strain started off as, within 50 generations, most likely, given the forces of nature being what they are, it will revert back to being a normal coronavirus. Interestingly, this is from personal knowledge, okay? I don't talk about beliefs. I hate beliefs. Beliefs just means another version of unknown. I was working in the town of Lamont, and Lamont is about 45 minutes outside of Edmonton. And there's an area around Lamont called Lamont County. When I was working there, that was in April or May of 2021. Everyone in town, that was April or May of 2020. Everyone in town said that in November of 2019, Everyone in town got sick with the worst flu ever. The worst. They're like, we're not worried about COVID-19 because in November 2019, we all got COVID-19 and we recovered. And I was like, oh, is that so? So then for the next year, all throughout 2020, I checked the COVID-19 stats for Lamont County. Edmonton was a red zone. All the counties surrounding Edmonton were yellow or red zones. Only Lamont County had no COVID cases all throughout 2020 until maybe it was August or September when they had one case. So what does that show you? If everyone in town reports getting sick with something that they've never had before, they all recover, and for the next year, no one in that town tests positive for COVID-19, that means every single one of those people who lived in Lamont County already had immunity to the COVID-19 DNA sequence. The surrounding areas were red zones and orange zones and yellow zones. And it was a you look through the map that Alberta had of all the counties, how many cases of COVID-19 they had. Lamont County was the only one. And it's only 45 minutes out of Edmonton. No COVID-19 cases. They all had immunity as of November 2019. That's 5 months before the supposed COVID-19 outbreak happened. I know this because I was there in person. I took care of the patients in Lamont County. I observed in Lamont County for 8 months after I had worked there.
Interesting you said November 2019 because I remember vividly November 2019 was at a soccer game, but I for some reason for a week I got really sick for a week. I have no idea why. And then this was November 2019, but I still played soccer, because I always played, but I was like I lost my voice and everything, but I'm like. And then, so that was 1 month before the supposed outbreak on the December in Wuhan.
So there's a couple possibilities. Either you got a natural non-COVID-19 coronavirus, or you got a version of the coronavirus that had already mutated back into being a normal coronavirus. It just still had enough of the original COVID-19 gene sequence that if you had been swabbed in November 2019 before the PCR test, you probably test positive for COVID-19.
So I've never tested. I'm like a natural pal. I want to avoid any mainstream stuff there. So yes, we have some comments in here. One of them was on. First, I wanted your thoughts on this whole 5G. Do you think there's any relation to the COVID-19, either the sequence or the testing or symptoms?
Symptoms of illness can be created by microwaving people.
Or do you think that affects their, like, you know how you're saying the different strains, or is there any way that the radiation can affect the strains?
So if you look at your wireless router, you'll see that its maximum power output between 250 and 500 milliwatts. Older Wi-Fi routers, they operate at 2.4 gigahertz. Your microwave operates at 2.45 gigahertz. That's the ideal frequency for heating water. Newer wireless, N and wireless G routers, I believe, they can go up to 5 gigahertz, which means faster streaming but decreased range. But still, the 5 gigahertz frequency band on wireless routers is between 500 and 1 watt. 500 milliwatts to 1,000 milliwatts is the maximum output you can get from your wireless router. Imagine if you turned your wireless router up to the power output of your microwave oven, which for most people is 1,100 watts. 1,100 watts. How sick are you going to feel? Right? Anyone want to try this at home? Go ahead, be my guest. Unscrew the doors of your microwave oven, switch the latch so that it can turn on without the door closed. See how you feel running your microwave oven at full power with the door open. You're not going to feel good. You're going to feel sick. You're going to feel achy. You might even get sick. Anything, with the amount of damage that a 2.45 gigahertz, never mind 5 gigahertz, will do to the body, you're probably going to start getting infections with regular staphylococcal and streptococcal viruses that are all over your body. Normally harmless bacteria that are everywhere, all of a sudden, after microwave damage to the cells of your body, they're going to turn deadly, right? Anyone doesn't believe how physical damage to cells can cause non-pathogenic, so non-deadly bacteria to become deadly, stick your hand in a pot of boiling water. After the cells of your hand have been damaged with boiling water, then observe for the next week how quickly you get an infection on burned skin. That's the same bacteria that's on your skin that doesn't cause any disease. But all of a sudden, after the physical damage of thermal damage from boiling water, your skin that was previously resistant to normal staphylococcal bacteria gets a life-threatening staphylococcal or streptococcal infection on the skin. So again, for most people, if your lungs are healthy, if your body's healthy, coronaviruses, influenza viruses, they're not going to cause any problem. You might not even notice it. You might be carrying something, you sneeze it out a couple days, you have a runny nose for maybe an afternoon, and then you're over it. But all of a sudden, if you add physical damage, whether that's from radon, microwave ovens, in huffing gasoline, right? So solvent damage to your lungs, right? That new car smell, the new car smell is solvent from the glue they use in new cars. You put any kind of chemical or physical damage, thermal damage to your skin, all of a sudden things that are not deadly will turn deadly.
Interesting about the microwave and radar and stuff like that. So I got a Tesla coil to do some experiments. So Wednesday I was doing a live stream and playing with my Tesla coil, and it's pretty powerful for a little one. So what I realized is, because I had my headphones on, it's that same microphone we had, that big one, that's right here. So when it was on, I can pick up, so my headphones connected to this. Yeah. I can pick up the static coming from it. Yeah. So it's like, zzz, and then as I get closer, I can hear it more. If I put this above this, it stops. This is the third.
So a Tesla coil will emit a broad spectrum electromagnetic pulse. Yeah. So any other electrical device, even a copper wire, will pick up energy from that electromagnetic pulse.
So what happened was, because I have the headphones on, I could hear this buzzing, and I could feel, and then, but when you do this spark, it almost blew my ears off. So I have a video. Let's see. I have it in slow motion. There's a spark, and I started yelling. I have it in slow motion, and it's gonna spark. Yeah, right there. And then it almost destroyed my ear because it was like. So I was astonished at how much it's picking up. So the pain wasn't from the spark. The pain was coming from my ear, from the headphone. So and I'm thinking, this is just a little Tesla coil that I can pick up with something like this. It's kind of like a receiver.
That's a problem. That's a common problem in high gain tube amplifiers for guitar. Right. The tube, like the old electronic technology, will pick up a lot of extraneous electromagnetic signals. It's just it's pre-digital electronics. Pre-digital electronics is fascinating. Yeah. That's Tesla era electronics and magnetism.
Yeah, and then there's a question here. Stephen F says, does Daniel think DNA completely explains replication in the morphological development of organisms? What's your opinion on
the one discrepancy to that is the experiment done by Luc Montagnier, where he took a vial that was free from any DNA contamination. He put it beside a vial with DNA, and he put both vials in a 7 hertz oscillating electromagnetic field. And what Luc Montagnier reported was that in the previously sterile vial that had no DNA, he found the same sequence of DNA that was in the non-sterile vial that had a known sequence of DNA. And the only connection between the two vials was a 7 hertz oscillating magnetic field. So again, that is the only evidence I'm aware of a non-DNA transcription enzyme copying method of transferring information in DNA. So that was a 7 hertz electromagnetic field. I've never done that experiment. I can't verify, but that's supposedly what Dr. Luc Montagnier achieved. So if that is true, that means the frequency or energy levels that you surround yourself with can affect your DNA. And in a way, that's actually been proven already, right? If you walk into an X-ray every other day, get a chest X-ray, your DNA is going to be damaged. And that's just by the high frequency not gamma, but X-ray radiation that comes from the X-ray machine going through your chest. X-ray frequency is several orders of magnitude higher in frequency than ultraviolet light, right? It's the same electromagnetic oscillation, just at a really high frequency. So we know that ionizing radiation, extremely high frequency electromagnetic waves, can alter DNA, usually in a destructive manner. So the other option is do lower frequency electromagnetic wave, let's say within the audible spectrum, 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, right? So this is millions of orders of magnitude lower frequency than X-ray or ultraviolet radiation. Can that have a beneficial effect on the body? And this was something that Dr. Rife in the 1940s researched.
Yeah, and you said it actually healed you up. And that was going to be a question that someone was asking. So Michael Levin, I've never heard of it, but he says, this person says that Michael Levin's work is cutting edge in proving the electromagnetic field basis of biology that is hidden. And I think that's related to the Rife machine and so on. And also if you can, if you have your thoughts on that, but also if you can give your story about how you apparently got cured by the Rife machine. And like they still
So the thing about frequencies is the right frequency can do a lot of beneficial things, but the wrong frequency can kill you. Okay, that's X-rays, that's microwave ovens, that's 5G. So what the big problem with the Rife story is that Rife worked hard doing a lot of research to find out what frequencies can kill pathogenic organisms such as influenzas, cancerous viruses, and bacteria. However, one of the conspiracies is that due to the effectiveness and the success of his work, what the powers that be in the 1940s did was they published all the wrong frequencies so that people would use the Rife machine and they wouldn't get better. Right? Because if they published the correct frequencies for curing a pneumonia, for example, then no one would use an antibiotic. So if you use the wrong frequencies over and over again, yeah, you might do harm to your body, just the same way that the wrong frequency of a microwave oven with the door being left open will damage your entire body if you ran the microwave oven with the door open. So from my perspective, it was very important for me to be careful with what frequencies are published and used in modern day Rife machines, because I had no independent verification that the frequencies being used are the correct ones. Until I was forced into the situation where shortly after February 13th, I became severely ill. So there's natural illnesses and there's not natural illnesses. So when I first became ill, it was with the typical influenza symptoms. So I've seen thousands of influenza patients. I know the difference between an influenza and a coronavirus. The hallmarks of influenza is a really high fever, 39-40, and muscle aches. Not much of a cough, no runny nose. Okay? Influenza's modus operandi is to use a lot of your body's resources to make lots of copies of itself. It transmits via air, right? So it has to create some kind of a cough, but it doesn't create so much of a cough that it will inconvenience you. However, when influenza is replicating using your body's own resources, the body doesn't like that. So then your body doesn't know how to fight that particular strain of influenza. So what your body does as a general kill-all is an extremely high fever until the body is able to develop specific antibodies to that year's strain of influenza. So when I first got sick, it was muscle aches all over and extremely high fevers of 40 degrees. Fevers, chills, rigors. I knew what exactly it was, didn't bother me. I was like, I'm gonna just bundle myself up in blankets, sleep on the couch, let the fever burn itself out. It's not gonna kill you. No influenza fever ever kills anyone. The body aches feel terrible, feels like you're gonna die, but no one ever dies of influenza. No one healthy, that is. So first night, I let the fever run its course. Great. Next morning, fever's gone. I'm thinking, okay, perfect. I just got the influenza. I'll be fine now. However, the second night, the exact same symptoms came back, which is not the case for a natural influenza. Natural influenza, you get your first high fever and that's it. Within 1 day, as soon as the fever breaks, that's it for that strain of influenza. It'll be at least another week or a month or next year before you get your next influenza, if you get another influenza. However, on the second night, I got the exact same symptoms all over again. Extremely high fevers, extreme muscle aches. So this means that after clearing the first strain of influenza, with the high fevers of 40 and the muscle aches from the night before, all of a sudden my body was fighting a different strain of influenza. This is highly unusual. Okay, usually influenzas progress one strain at a time, one strain per year, at most 2 strains in 1 year, but never within a day of each other. So this was very unusual. So as soon as I started to get the second fever, my fever spiked to 38, then 39, muscle aches all over again. I said, there's something wrong with this. I can't be getting 2 different strains of influenza within 24 hours of each other all at once. So then I used the Rife machine. And the only frequency I set the Rife machine to was the influenza frequency. 2 hours after using just the influenza frequency on the Rife machine, the muscle aches and fever stopped completely. So the natural course of that second influenza strain was interrupted within 2 hours of applying the correct frequency to my body. This was at a wattage of maybe about 10 watts, right? 2/3 of the way up on the amplifier, the high frequency 20 megahertz amplifier that I attached to the Rife machine. So I thought, okay, everything's fine, great. The next morning, I woke up coughing up blood. So I had crackles in my lungs. Every time I took a breath in, I would hear crackles, just like if you had a sponge that was wet, you squeeze the sponge, you put the sponge to your ear and you release the sponge and you hear crackle, crackle, crackle. I had crackles, I was coughing up deep, dark green phlegm, and there was blood inside the phlegm. This wasn't a runny nose, this was blood from inside the phlegm. So, crackles in the lungs, dark green phlegm with blood, that's pneumonia. Okay, that's just from the emergency department experience. I don't need if you hear crackles and you have the right symptoms of fever and blood especially, blood is a sign, blood in your phlegm is a sign that the tissue is being destroyed. Viral infections of the lungs, of lung tissue, rarely ever causes coughing up blood because the virus doesn't completely kill the cell, or it shouldn't in a healthy person. Bacteria, however, they do cause tissue damage. Anyone with a skin infection will know that by experience. So coughing up blood with green phlegm, I was facing a bacterial pneumonia. No questions asked. Okay, this was no longer a virus. The fever wasn't a 39 or 40 degree fever. This was a 38 degree fever. And this is hours after all the muscle aches and high fevers of the influenza were stopped the night before by the Rife machine. So I set the Rife machine, now that I had a clinical pneumonia, I set it to the pneumonia frequencies. Within 2 hours of using just the pneumonia frequencies on the Rife machine, my phlegm went from dark green with blood inside the green phlegm to clear and white phlegm. Fevers were gone. So now my body's coughing up clear to whitish phlegm, which is a sign it's just clearing out inflammation. The green phlegm is gone, which means the body decided, well, it no longer has to fight off any bacteria because the green color is from neutrophils, which release substances, peroxides, to kill bacteria that gives the phlegm a dark green color. Those are neutrophils. Neutrophils and macrophages, for that matter. So now all of a sudden, 2 hours after the Rife machine set to pneumonia, my body stops fighting off bacteria and is now just clearing out inflammation, which is seen by the whitish phlegm and clear phlegm. Fevers are gone. 2 hours. For the next 3 days, I tried a dozen different frequencies to try and get rid of a headache that started after the pneumonia was gone. So the pneumonia was gone, I thought I was fine. Later that day, I started to get a throbbing headache that wasn't a migraine, that's worse than any other headache that I had. I tried encephalitis frequencies, I tried RSV frequencies, coronavirus frequencies, headache frequencies, every other frequency. Nothing was getting rid of this headache, which was massive. And then I looked up in the back of the Rife frequency handbook, and there's a set of frequencies that isn't pre-programmed into the Rife machine, that you have to program in yourself, because in that handbook it says these frequencies aren't proven, So, use at your own risk. And the frequencies I programmed in, just based on my symptoms, I was like, this is not a migraine headache, it's not a tension headache, it's not a cluster headache, right? And this isn't any other viral headache or a sinusitis headache, because I tried all those frequencies. None of those frequencies worked on the Rife machine. The only thing this could be is an encephalitis. So I programmed in the arbovirus settings into the Rife machine. So arboviruses are interesting. They usually cause encephalitis, but the only method of transmission for arboviruses is direct injection vector. That's a tick that's transferring blood from someone who has an arbovirus to someone who doesn't, or a mosquito. The most common arboviruses known to medicine are the ones that are sometimes deadly. This is the Eastern equine encephalitis and Venezuelan equine encephalitis. And then you also have the tick-borne encephalitis diseases like Similki-Fortis, and there's a few other viruses. There's not that many. But these are all ones that cause inflammation of the brain. Not meningitis. Meningitis is inflammation of the meninges that surround the brain. Meningitis is if your neck is stiff, like you can't touch your chin to your chest, then if you can do that, you don't have meningitis because there's no inflammation of the surroundings of your brain. Encephalitis is actual inflammation inside the brain and brain damage to the brain. Okay, that's not something that happens with meningitis. So again, I was able to tip my chin to my chest. I was able to move my neck. I didn't have meningitis. The headache, the severe headache, lack of fever, the only thing this could have been was encephalitis. So I programmed in the arbovirus encephalitis frequencies, and 10 hours after using this, the headaches went away completely. From 10 out of 10 headaches to 0 out of 10. The only discrepancy is that I had never been bitten by a mosquito in the past 2 weeks, never been bitten by a tick in the past. Well, I don't even know if I've ever been bitten by a tick. So how do I get an encephalitis pathology that gets better with only the encephalitis frequencies of the Rife machine? Because I used a whole bunch of other frequencies that didn't work. How did I get an encephalitis despite never having been bitten by anything? The added proof that I did in fact have an encephalitis was by the brain damage. Because shortly after I felt better, I tried to play a gig at an open mic where I play the piano. And all of a sudden, from being perfectly able to play the piano, this particular song that I practiced hundreds, maybe even thousands of times before, all of a sudden I couldn't catch the beat. I remembered the notes, but I couldn't catch the beat on something that I'm used to doing over and over again. So that was proof to me that I had measurable brain damage, because something that I was perfectly coordinated at, I couldn't do the next day. And in fact, still to this day, this is over a month later, I have trouble remembering names that I used to remember quite easily. I make typos that I usually don't make, and I have basic word finding difficulties. So this is not something that happens with a sinus headache, a viral infection, or meningitis even. You don't get brain damage from meningitis, right? This was an encephalitis, proven by brain damage. And it only got better after the arbovirus frequencies of the Rife machine.
Well, that's fascinating. So I have a couple of questions about the Rife machine, and also how is you said brain damage, is it getting better now, or is it?
So anytime you have brain damage, whether you hit your head or a motorcycle accident, or you got assaulted and punched or knocked out, the only way around brain damage is to retrain your brain, right? Okay. And so the only things to retrain the brain is to have a good diet, adequate vitamins so your brain can rebuild the connections, adequate omega-3 fats, right? So eat your fish or whatever, seafood, or take your cod oil supplements. And that allows the brain to make neuron connections and repair itself. And then it's just the hard work of retraining, re-remembering, continuing to do mental exercises until your brain reaches the level it was before you had the brain damage.
Okay, and then a few more questions with the Rife machine. I want to continue back on the Theo one because we've almost 3 hours.
Okay. Sorry, is it almost 5 o'clock?
It's 4:17. Okay. Yeah, I think it's close to 5:30. But yeah, I do want to finish that trailer and then get the thoughts, especially at the end where the actual SWAT team comes in, because this is a place, and then we can point out where exactly. We'll get to that in a bit. But the Rife machine. The question is, where do you get a Rife machine, and how long were you using it for at a time? And then where did you get a Rife machine? And then also, question here, this person says, Paul's asking, where can I find out the strains Daniel just mentioned for the encephalitis?
It's at the back of the GB 4000 handbook.
Oh.
Okay, and it's in the anecdotal frequencies list.
Okay.
And you look up arbovirus, and those are the tick-borne or mosquito-borne encephalitis viruses. And there's maybe about 8 frequencies that are run at the same time.
And another question is, so if you didn't have a tick or any of those, how do you think you obtained this illness?
So to obtain more than one viral illness at the same time is unusual. So to get 2 influenzas, 1 bacterial pneumonia, and an encephalitis, and my runny nose and sinusitis got a bit better after I used the RSV frequency. So that's 5 different viruses: RSV, 2 influenzas, 1 bacterial pneumonia, and 1 encephalitis. To get 5 all at once, that can only be by poisoning. And I suspect how that happened was that somebody who knew what vehicle I used, and this is what I published in my Substack account, Current Attempts and Conspiracies to Murder, the same people who know which minivan I drive, who broke into the minivan and stole my bug out bag, perhaps at the same time or perhaps at a later time, they dumped some infectious agent into the air intake of the cabin air intake of the minivan that I drive. Right? And the cabin air intake for every vehicle, it's that grate that's underneath the front wipers. So if you lift up the front wipers, there's a little grate that is, for the rain to pass down through, but also that's where all vehicles suck the air from the outside in to put through your air conditioning and heating system. That's your cabin air intake. So somebody who I suspect was trying to kill me dumped that powder or some powdery substance into the cabin air intake, and when I started the car and the heater ran, that's when I had a dose of infectious agent concentrated in the air that was being blown in my face by the heating system.
Which articles I'll put in the link to the chat. What was that called again?
So the Rife Machine article I describe in 2 attempts on my life in Japan.
Okay, 2 attempts. Those in Japan. Okay.
No. I talk about all the attempts on my life that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I just want to know the Rife Machine, and also if you can.
So that's in the last half of that article, the 2 attempts.
2 attempts. Okay. Yeah.
Because the 3rd attempt that I don't mention in the title is what happened to me with these multiple infections all happening at the same time. The minivan article where I suspect where they stole my bug out bag with emergency cash and my emergency laptop, that's the article with the picture of the minivan with a smashed window. So if you scroll down, so see all. Current Conspiracies to Murder. So that's the minivan that was broken into.
Okay, and then the other, I think there was another question someone saying, but but also with the Rife Machine. So where do you buy this? Where do you buy the Rife Machine?
Now you can buy it online, but the person I bought my unit from was a man who's been doing Rife Machine treatments for 20 years in Calgary, and he's speaking to him, he said he's cured brain tumors in children, has had a number of cures from cancer using the Rife Machine. And he used to be a Navy officer with the Electronic Warfare Division back in the 1950s with the New Zealand Navy. And at that time, the New Zealand Navy was experimenting with radar in the 50s and 60s, trying to figure out what frequencies could be used to kill people. Actually, a lot of militaries were around that time in the 50s and 60s were experimenting and researching what frequencies of what strength could cause what type of damage for military purposes. So I wouldn't even bother searching Amazon. You might as well just be asking the military industrial complex, how can I poison myself with a device from the military industrial complex? If you're searching Amazon or buying stuff off of Amazon, basically you're buying from the military industrial complex, and they don't, or the pharmaceutical industrial complex. There's no way they're going to give you a genuine machine through that.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, so let's have to make one as well. But yeah, so But yeah, so you said there's someone in Alberta. But anyways, I do want to continue here. What is the historic?
Ecosia.org.
Ecosia. How do you spell?
SIA.
Oh, .org.
.org. Yeah. And do a search GB 4000.
GD.
GB 4000.
GB 4000 right machine.
Yeah, that.
Okay. So I'll send it.
That's a machine that looks identical to the one I have.
That's 5,000 whole. Okay. Yeah, and about cancer and all this. Another question is
so the correct frequency can cure a cancer, but like I said before, the wrong frequency can give you cancer. So.
Now, the other question is: have you ever heard about German new medicine?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't have any experience with it. I can't comment.
Because that's one thing. Because it's like how like biological shocks can induce cancer. So the view is cancer is like an emergency program that occurs, and then when the conflict is resolved, that can it's like the body heals itself. And one example is here's a cow. That actually got cancer after the story is it witnessed its own child getting like abused when they take it and put the tags on. So it develops cancer, and then they do nothing to it, and it goes away naturally. So it was able to produce extra milk to feed the baby. And you can see the giant tumor on its like near its. It tells you the story here, but. And yeah, so it has a giant tumor on it, and it goes away naturally. And it apparently turns into debris, so there's a giant tumor on it. And so once it gets the child back, it starts feeding it extra milk, and so there's a giant tumor.
I mean, yeah, like it's one thing to say one thing or another on a video.
Then it goes away.
What type of a tumor that is? Who knows, right? Unless you took a biopsy of it, you put it under a microscope, you did a genetic analysis. You don't know if that's a lipoma, which is a benign tumor. It's a lymphoma that can sometimes be cleared if the body develops antibodies to its own lymphoma. Is it a squamous cell cancer, which sometimes the body does heal on its own? Because once you make antibodies to the cancer, your body will kill its own cells that have that cancer antigen. So there are spontaneous cures of cancers if you just leave the body alone. Sometimes, though, the cancer is not curable by the body on its own. This is an example of people really need to learn what logical fallacies are, right? Just because in some cases cancers can be cured by the body's own natural mechanisms does not mean that all cancers are curable by the body's own mechanisms, right? Just because a cow can cure its own cancer doesn't mean that you can cure its own cancer.
No, there's similar example. No, the reason I bring it up, I understand. There's no like this one is not the same case for everything. Each specific model, how you evaluate or model of biology will have its own.
Everyone's an individual, different case, right?
No, that's what
the worst thing I can say is. So people who are stuck on the narratives like all cancers are curable if you just do it naturally. And then you get that one cancer patient who's doing everything naturally, and then they die of their cancer.
No,
right?
It's
not. You have to deal with the individual.
No, that's what I'm trying to get at.
And what really frustrates me is there's so many people out there that believe it's like, oh, if you just take enough of this juice, oh, if you just do enough of this, or if you just do enough of that, or if you just eat enough chlorophyll stuff. If you just eat enough of that, you'll cure your cancer no matter what it is. And people will get adamantly, and they can be watching the patient in front of them get worse and worse, and they say, no, you're just not taking enough. And then they die. And then the person who believes this cure-all just walks off into the wilderness and you never hear them on.
No, I know. The whole idea is there's no cure-all, but the thing is trying to understand it. And like in this framework is if someone avoids their conflict for a longer time, the cancer is going to get worse and worse, where the best scenario is to go and actually do just a general surgery, because the recovery phase.
I mean, I don't know how this applies to German new medicine, but in Eastern medicine, one of the causes, and this is why I don't like this, it's all caused by, that if you hear anyone saying some narrative, it's all caused by, and this is the cure for it all, they're a liar. Okay? traditional Chinese or Eastern medicine, one of the causes of cancer is thought to be, or is said to be, harboring, harboring a grudge. Harboring a powerful negative emotion can lead to cancer. Okay? I know that, like, there's people who hold no long-term grudges, and they work in an X-ray department, and they get exposed to lots of X-rays every day of their life, and then they get cancer and die. Okay? It has nothing to do with emotional trauma. It just has to do with being exposed to X-ray radiation every day. This is why I really dislike videos and emotionally manipulative narratives that are spread that capture people by emotions, not by facts, right? So emotional trauma, yeah, if you are bearing a grudge or some profound daily negative emotion, yeah, the stress that puts on the body, it will increase your cortisol levels. It's like, oh, I'm going to kill that person. Oh, I'm going to kill that person. The stress of harboring that anger and that grudge for years on end, that suppresses the immune system, and this suppressed immune system will lead to cancer, right? Whether it's a cow witnessing, I don't know, its calf being tagged or something, it's not relevant. That's just one of the ways to cause cancer.
Yeah, similarly, you can cause it with microwave radiation damage to tissues and so on, and genetic makeup. But the reason, so the way I do it is, again, I agree with you, it's not one thing. So whenever I ask, for example, if I ask AI for analyze any symptoms, I always ask it to do a table of three, basically the conventional one, terrain theory and German medicine, just so you have a list of what is their rationale. So you always have every single thing. And the other part about the one about German medicine one though is you can use, if it's valid, you can try to predict if someone gets cancer. So I actually predicted my coach, my soccer coach, was going to get cancer because he had a few life-altering things that happened to him. So he injured his leg, so he can't play soccer anymore.
Did he bear a grudge about that, or did he get over it and find another hobby?
No, but I'm saying this all in like a short time frame. So then his dad died, and his wife's I think his wife's dad died, all in like the same go. And COVID happened, so he lost his funding because he was our coach. We were paying him. Right.
Did that leave feelings of bitterness or anger? Like, this is what I'm saying.
No, I understand.
German medicine says that's the cause of the cancer.
So what I mean is, I was able to predict that he's going to get cancer.
And Chinese traditional medicine would have also predicted the same things. Like, yeah, he's harboring a lot of negative emotions, and unless he gets over it.
One point pick. And then, so I told my brother that he's at the ICU, right? So I told him, anyone that has cancer, check their recent background. So typically, one was, let's say, a car crash, and say someone dies, a child dies, and then basically look at all people associated with that family and see if they're going to get cancer within that year. Basically what I'm trying to say is try to put some sort of so as opposed to believe anything, try to put some sort of logical. That's what I try to do. I try to put some sort of logical, predictive analysis.
But then the thing is, you'll have people who go through severe trauma. They go through war zones and they're fine.
But again, it's different for each person because again.
Right. Okay. So now we're getting to the difference between science and speculation. Science applies to everyone.
No, I'm saying the person themselves could take a scenario differently than someone else.
So that's the point. That's no matter what label you put on it, right? German New Medicine or Eastern medicine, it's not about the external, it's about the internal. So some people who get cancer, they've had no trauma to their lives. There's no reason. They're rich, they have a perfectly fine life, no divorce, no stress in their life, and they get cancer. Right? How's German New Medicine going to explain that?
We'll have to see that.
No, but the thing is, well, this is what happens. I see this in the emergency department. People who have no explanation for cancer. Some people, they have cancer. Some people, they have an obvious explanation for cancer. They are stressed, depressed, vengeful, bitter people, and yeah, just as German New Medicine or Oriental Eastern medicine would predict, yeah, they get cancer, right? So the thing is, what applies to everyone? Well, everyone's a little bit different, so that each case has to be taken individually. Now, the minute you put a label on something and you want to interpret something in terms of terrain theory, for example, okay, then you are putting blinders on to reality. You are limiting your observation. You shouldn't put any, like if you're asking Grok something, you shouldn't ask it, oh, give me the interpretation in this theory and that theory and that theory. Garbage. Just give me the observations and the data out of them. Don't try to reinterpret reality in the lens through rose-colored glasses, orange-colored glasses, or blue-colored glasses. This is what you're doing. So if I interpret everything I see before me in terms of a Western medicine pharmaceutical perspective, it's only 1/10 of the truth, right? If you're trying to interpret everything in terms of 3 perspectives, Western medicine, terrain, and whatever, German new medicine, you're getting 15% of the truth, right? You have to look at what's before your eyes without any prejudice or bias, and then go from there. Not try to reinterpret, like to arrive at a conclusion before you've made the observation.
No, but what I'm trying to say is the reason I asked that because Grok gives the mainstream. If you don't say anything, it will give you the mainstream, which is the Western stuff. For example, you say, we'll say vaccine.
So why are you using Grok all the time?
No, that's the quick thingy there.
Yeah, I don't like quick things. I like reality, right?
But again,
you're getting Grok's bias when you ask it that, right? And then if you ask it, say, give me the interpretation in terms of witchcraft, what's the explanation for cancer? Grok will probably give you an answer for that. Doesn't mean that
I do think there's some
the witchcraft one is scientifically valid, right?
There might be something to this witchcraft because they do a lot of this stuff out in the open, like the rituals, like even that Wuhan military games, like.
Yeah.
Just before it's like they do this giant cult.
Just because people do the stupid ceremony doesn't mean it's real. Just putting that out there, okay?
I know, but just because they do it, there's probably some reason they're doing it.
Okay, the logical mechanism. You know who witchcraft works on? People who believe in it.
No,
if people cast a spell, okay, I'll give you an example of how easy it is to cast a spell. You've done something bad. Repent, 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 repent. How do you feel?
It's pretty good.
No. If someone is screaming at you to repent,
Yeah.
using that word to repent, how does your heart feel?
Yeah,
you feel trapped. You feel pent up. You feel shame. You feel angry. You feel diminished.
Yeah.
Now, someone says you've done something bad. Redeem yourself. How does your heart feel?
That's good.
No, he's like, oh, well, there's something good I can do to repair the wrong that I've done in my past because I'm being told to redeem myself. That is a spell. Because it changes the way you feel. So let's say, whatever, something bad happens in your life and somebody who's trying to cast a spell on you says, oh, that bad thing happened to you because you need to repent. And what ends up happening is you harbor guilt, anger, vengeance, or any number of negative emotions. And guess what happens to you? More bad things happen to you. And you think, oh my God, that person cast a spell on me. It's like, no, you cast a spell on yourself by instead of thinking about, oh, something bad happened, how can I make this better? You thought of the same situation in terms of repentance, which diminishes the soul, as opposed to redemption, which is something you can do to increase your soul, to repair what was done wrong and make yourself a better person. Same event, but 2 different ways of looking at it, right? So it's not a question of witchcraft or what, is how do you look at the situation and your position in relation to the situation? You look at it in a negative way or a positive way? I really dislike people, people who go around screaming at the world to repent and punish and repent and punish. Stop that. Always think in terms of redemption. Right? So even for someone as villainous as Fauci, I don't want him to repent and go to jail. I want him to try and fix and do everything to the last minute he's alive to repair the harm he's done to the world. That's right. And if he can't do that, well, he can meet his maker, and then whatever's left unrepaired, he can deal with at the time of judgment.
Yeah.
But redemption is the positive way to look at any harm, wrongdoing, or evil act. People who are running around screaming for punishment, guess what? They're probably going to get cancer because they're looking at the world in a negative way as opposed to looking at the world in the view that it is something to be repaired. This is the difference between good and bad, cancer, no cancer, healthy, and
I think you see this
unhealthy.
a lot. You saw a lot in the COVID propaganda on the news. You see it's like everyone's about to die. Go get the vax. Wear 4 masks. My other coach was wearing 2 masks. during like our game when he was on the sideline. I can't even hear him. He was two. He's trying to yell. I'm like, my goodness, you're wearing two. I can't. How do you breathe? So again, I think that's part of that whole wear this or you're gonna die. It's similar to repent. The same thing now is wear 4 masks. All right. I think we're almost 3 hours. If we have, I do want to finish this, and then I think we have to end it because I don't know how long we can go for it. And I haven't eaten anything but an apple because I only eat 1 meal a day. So it's part of that intermittent fasting. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah, no, I wrote an article about that. If you really want to clear cancer, this doesn't have anything to do with German New Medicine or Eastern medicine or any school of thought.
Yeah.
Okay, this is just fact. I published an article. It's in the article 2020 Year in Review. The most, from my biological training, the most effective way to clear cancer or genetically damaged cells out of the body is to let your body do it itself. The body will only clear genetically damaged cells if it's forced into a starvation situation where it has to break down damaged or unhealthy cells for energy. That's after more than 72 hours of fasting, right? So now you've gone from ketosis to starvation. Now, when your body is trying to survive because it's not getting any calories, the body wants to preserve the healthiest cells in the body. So to preserve the healthiest cells in the body, it has to make sure it doesn't autophagocytose or eat healthy cells. Your body wants to focus on breaking down and eating unhealthy cells and using those for energy because you haven't eaten anything for 7 days. When your body is doing that, then your body is one by one, starting with the unhealthiest cells and progressing to the steadily less unhealthy cells, so that whenever you do end your fast, only the healthiest cells are preserved to regrow your body. Okay, that was something researched by Russians that was partially adopted by NASA called the Phoenix Protocol. That supposedly NASA developed this protocol, stealing Russian research to help their astronauts after they had radiation damage from passing through the Van Allen radiation belt, right?
That's fascinating.
So that's a big dosage of ionizing radiation, which will cause cancer. You don't want your astronauts all to die of cancer or lymphoma 6 months after they go to space. So you have to give them some kind of protocol where any genetically damaged cells get cleared out by the body at a cellular level. So that's something that's beyond taking a PCR test, checking to see if you have cancer, or taking some kind of special vitamin. This is using your own body's own cell-to-cell mechanism to clear out DNA damage. And so that's something I wrote about in Year in Review 2020.
That's fascinating. So I kind of view that like fasting as it's kind of like a biological workout or a genetic workout, similar to like exercising. Exercising is good regardless of which model or truth of biology, but German medicine, Western, Eastern, it doesn't matter because exercise is one core that has to fit in with any model you do. And the other thing I just want to make a point of the German medicine, I strongly believe in the placebo effect. So that's kind of where it's like you believe you'll be fine, you'll be fine. So it's kind of like
but that doesn't always work, right?
No, I know there's a limit, but I kind of view like if you believe it enough, you can move mountains.
There's some things. I really don't like belief. It's either a fact or not. And there's some things that are curable and repairable by a change in mindset, and then there's some things that aren't repairable by a change in mindset.
No, that's where I get to the point where I think, because my view of reality is that if you truly like you believe something to the point where it's a fact, like subconsciously, like that's
that doesn't work for having a microwave oven with its door open running at 11. You can believe it all you want, that you're not going to cook yourself by leaving a microwave oven with full blast and standing in front of it.
No, basically, what I'm trying to say it's like the Matrix.
Reality.
No, but I'm trying to say it's like the Matrix, where it's like you can believe you can dodge a bullet. So I think there is I think that's how reality ultimately is, but it requires like going beyond your own conscious.
I would encourage you not to hold beliefs until you test them.
No, that's what I mean. What I'm trying to say is that's kind of my
point of science. It's asking questions. You can believe whatever you want, but it doesn't become reality unless it passes the test of reality. So if you think you can dodge a bullet because you believe in enough, go give it a try.
No, again, what I'm trying to say is like we're believing in our reality just by our view of science. For example, how do we know we're not in a dream?
Okay, I don't exist in a world of belief. I observe reality, which is a fact, which is provable and testable.
No, what I mean
the
is
same for everyone.
Everyone's
Unknown,
vision of reality is possibly an illusion. Like we all believe this is reality. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, I don't. There's reality that I observe, that I experience.
No,
and
I know.
Then there's stuff that is not real.
No, but what I'm trying to say is we believe our observations are real. Similar when you're in a dream. You don't realize, like, sometimes when you're in a dream, you don't realize it's a dream. Sometimes you do. So it's kind of like...
Yeah, I don't live by that.
Yeah,
I'm actually very simple. Like, I don't hold beliefs. I have things that I know and things that I don't know.
So I agree. My view is I'm just putting my perception of reality as part of the unknowns. Like, I'm not sure if this is actually a reality. So basically, no, I agree with you. Be very logical, scientific, but understanding that even the observation itself we're doing, we have to put some doubt as to.
Do you?
Like I just told you, I truly believe we're in some sort of like malleable.
How would you test it?
That's the point,
right. So. If you
there's some tests.
What would really benefit people is half of what you're saying, recognizing your own perspective and how it changes your observation.
Yeah.
But there's also this is somewhat Masonic.
Yeah.
You can adopt an insular one perspective view of reality. Mm-hmm. That's going to be very limited to your own perspective.
Yeah.
The next level up is literally put yourself in another man's shoes.
Yeah.
Now, when you are able to imagine, put your mind in the shoes or the viewpoint of another, now you have two different perspectives on what you're looking at, right? That is a little bit closer to the truth than a singular perspective. Now, the highest perspective is the view of the entire reality from everyone's eyes, all at the same time. This is not achievable by humans, but theoretically, that is the highest perspective. So looking at something from all angles, from everyone's shoes, all at the same time, that is literally the God perspective, okay? That is reality, something that is the same for all observers. That's the shared reality of everyone. Okay? The first step to recognizing that, or being able to get closer to that universal view of reality, which some philosophies and ancient religions call the third eye, is by first putting yourself in another man's shoes. Once you're able to do that and able to see things from a perspective different from your own, guess what? You've moved to the next level of being able to see reality for what it is. The hardest set of shoes to put yourself into is the shoes of your enemy. Because for whatever personal reasons, fear, disdain, hate, anger, that's the shoes that is most difficult for people to put themselves in. However, I try my best to do that. And if I was, let's say, a globalist seeking to cull the population and enslave the masses, right? What would I do next? Right? No. And the first is get rid of problem people like Rashid Buttar, successful kill. Get rid of problem people like those 8 doctors in Brazil who died in a plane crash as they were headed to a cancer conference. This hit the mainstream news. Kill off doctors like Doctor Nagase, who seem to keep telling inconvenient things.
You're still here.
So that was the series of my articles. The real ending to every James Bond is if there is a government CSIS Secret Service conspiracy to kill me, what is their weak point? Well, when you do something bad for a Secret Service, and I told this from my own knowledge of one Canadian man who was killed a year before retirement, who held a red passport. And I strongly suspect he was working for the Secret Service of the Canadian government. And that's why he was killed 1 year before his retirement, because the only safe secret is a dead one. So anyone who works for a Secret Service, CSIS, or some MI5 or above Secret Service agency, if you think you're going to get an easy retirement by following orders and killing your target, guess what? You're never going to make it to retirement. The more secret stuff you've done as a part of MI5, MI6, CIA, or whatever unnamed agency, the more likely it is you're going to get killed right after you do your job. That's how the spy world works, right? So to put that out in the perspective, put that out in the public, as I did in my James Bond, Real Ending to James Bond Part 1 and Part 2 articles, is to put that towards anyone who's coming after me. It's like, you can come after me, but realize that if you complete your job and you manage to kill me off, you're next. And that's not something that's trying to create fear. This is just a fact of life. This is how the system that you work for, collecting a paycheck for CSIS or whatever, RCMP special operations, that's what you get for doing your job. That's how the Crown rewards its secret agents, with an early retirement to the grave. Right? Now, if that is in the back of the mind of anyone who's trying to get rid of me, they might decline to do their job, or they might botch doing their job to my advantage, because that increases my chances of survival. That's why I wrote the series of articles that I wrote, right?
That's good.
But the reason why I wrote that, the reason why I saw that angle, is I put myself in the shoes of the Crown. There's this doctor from nowhere who, in November of 2021, back when no one was supposed to be talking about DNA damage from mRNA, he was doing a street speech out in front of Vancouver City Hall talking about the cell biology of DNA damage from injecting RNA into your body. Where the hell did he come from? You have to get rid of this person because he has so much knowledge that you don't know what he's going to say next. He might expose our plans, and I don't even know how he got the plans. How does he know about all our plans?
That's a good question.
No, that is a good question, right?
Yeah.
It's because I take the knowledge that I do have and I look through the possibilities. And being an emergency doctor, where my job, year after year, day after day, month after month, was making sure that whoever came in the emergency department, they didn't have the worst possible thing that would kill them. Right? So when someone comes to the emergency department, I don't care that they have some illness that's not going to kill them. It's like, I can't tell you whether or not you have that or not. All I can tell you is today we're going to make sure you don't have a life-threatening lung infection, you don't have a life-threatening blood clot, you don't have a life-threatening heart attack, or anything else that could take your life or limb. All the other aches and pains that haven't killed you for 10 years, I might not be able to get to the bottom of that in an 8-hour emergency visit. I'm sorry. All I can do for you today is make sure that you're not going to have anything that's going to kill you in the next 48 hours to 1 month. Right? So I'm a worst case scenario type of person, right? As long as it's not the worst case scenario, then you're doing good. That was kind of what living and working in the emergency department for years and years has trained my mind to be. So after I rule out the worst case scenario, which is someone trying to kill me, then, every day is a gift from the heavens.
No, that's great to hear. All right, we're almost at 5 o'clock, but yeah, I do want to finish this. We have a minute there, just so we can finish the stream, because I need to eat, and this is next level. But anyways, so guys, we're at the 1:42-minute mark at the trailer. Theo is at this very spot. Which chair?
No, he's at the back table.
We're sitting at the far table there. Okay. So for 2 hours without a ventilator, he's playing with the daughters that he's only allowed to see for 4 hours a week. How could anyone take a baby away from their family?
Let's look at the video. Signs of lack of oxygen: blue lips and struggling to breathe.
Yeah,
Make up your own mind. That's something anyone can see.
He's literally fine.
So tongue is pink, lips are pink, he's smiling, he's not struggling to breathe. This is about not even 15 minutes. 10 minutes after playing in a playground. So physical exertion.
Yeah. And again, the father took the kid only for his 2 hours anyways. Literally just for the 2-hour custody.
This is what social workers were trying to prevent.
Yeah. Yeah, just like watching this video, I don't know how anyone can argue anything else. Is there like a list of reasons they put in? But it also, you didn't want them. Oh, and there's the place there. But before we get to this, did they have any so they were opposed to the vaccines as well?
Well, there's no proof that anything that's given to a genetically standard child is going to have the same effect on a very genetically different child.
Like a rare to the max, like less than 100 people, all of 2025, apparently there's 86 people as of 2025. So again, we're gonna play this video now. It's gonna be the part right here. So at the 2 minute 35 minute mark, 2 minute and 35 second mark of the trailer, there's the police officer grabbing him. The question: why wasn't he letting
No, they had already grabbed Theo at this
Oh,
point.
they already grabbed Theo. So what's he looking for?
No, he's trying to grab the camera out of
Oh, he's trying to grab the camera. That changes everything. Because he's saying put the camera down. I'm like, it's a camera. Why you're allowed to?
No, they had already grabbed Theo at this point.
I know, but he has a camera. So then, and I was thinking, what was he? Why was he not complying with him? But the thing is, you're allowed to record, aren't you? Aren't you allowed to record a public servant?
Well, the SWAT didn't seem to think so.
And they're pushing, and this one here, they're pushing the kid out.
So that's Davis's eldest child. They lunged at her because she was initially. So that's their second child. So the oldest child, he's being assaulted by the SWAT officer in the hoodie with the light hair.
Yeah.
She was, before this video started, she was trying to record them. And she was the first child after Theo that they attacked.
Holy, and then I heard did they bump Theo's head?
Yeah, so that's what Davis told me, is that they grabbed Theo so aggressively out of his hands, they actually pushed Theo into the back wall and hit his head against the back wall.
Unbelievable. It's like, what in the world?
So this video starts after the eldest daughter, the 10-year-old, had the video camera ripped out of her hands, and then she started fighting back against the officers who ripped the camera out of her hands. What probably happened is the officer ripped the camera out of her hands, but instead of pocketing the camera, because she was struggling so hard trying to fight back, the officer put the camera on the table, which after Davis, the father, had his hands freed because Theo was taken out of his hands, he went and grabbed the camera that was previously in his eldest daughter's hands, that was ripped out of her hands by the officer in the hoodie, and he started filming instead.
Unbelievable. And this is literally this coffee shop right here.
Well, that back wall with the table of four, yeah.
Okay. Absolutely unbelievable. Okay. So, this is place. And then it says his ribs are hurting. Did they step on him? And
well, what I heard him screaming was, "You're stepping on my fingers," and they seem to repeatedly step on his fingers.
But if you listen to this, the police officers are saying wrong move, as in like they're taunting him. Like he's a.
Oh no, they're punishing him. They're beating him up.
They're saying wrong move. Like, what do you mean wrong move? They're videotaping your own thing. And what?
Well, they already have Theo. They took Theo. So what wrong move is there?
And do the
this is aggression.
Do the police officers have cameras on them?
No, they didn't. The SWAT team didn't.
What in the world? This is Canada. There's no accountability. How are you supposed to know if police officers are doing their duty as opposed to their duty to the crowd?
Well, they're committing terrorism, right? The whole objective for assaulting the family is to create terror and fear, so that the next time the family will be more obedient to the crown.
Yeah, this is absolutely.
There's no reason to attack Theo, and there's no reason to attack a 10-year-old.
Or take the camera. And while they had a undercover cop here for 5 minutes.
Yeah, that looks to be the guy in the hoodie, scoping out the scene.
Yeah, and it's like.
So they already had advanced intel that no one was going to run anywhere. There's only one exit to the coffee shop, so you might as well just come in and say, "Hey, we have the coffee shop surrounded. Can you please return your baby to social worker? We're here to pick him up. Can you please hand him over?" That's the safest way to do this. Do something.
Yeah.
Right? What happened was they sent in a SWAT team who attacked the baby who was the subject of the Amber Alert. They attacked an unrelated elder sister of the baby who was the subject of this Amber Alert. And the attacks, the physical attacks, both on the father, and on the 10-year-old daughter, were all for the purposes of stopping the daughter from taking a film and attacking the father, who was also taking a film.
Yeah, that's absolutely. It's like it's beyond words. Like, this is Canada. Again, I think after COVID, after COVID, I realized like, this could happen. Before COVID, I'm like, Canada wouldn't go that far.
So I know in the truth movement, everyone likes to follow complain about the tyrants at the WHO. And
No,
Teresa
we literally have it right here.
yeah. So there's tyrants everywhere.
Yeah, especially when it's like when the witchcraft put a spell, when they put, for example, a police officer puts that badge on and the vest on.
Right, so
they
it's a
transform
mindset. It's a mindset, right? Then they transform into a monster.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I mean by the
subhuman set of articles. It's like subhuman is literally whatever you do to yourself, whatever ceremony you do to yourself that makes you act like less than a human being.
Yeah.
Whether that's acting like a trained attack dog, attacking people without reason, or whether that means acting subhuman like an animal, like we saw with that social worker.
Yeah, that social worker, absolutely insane. Like they have to realize that the parents are only seeing their kid for 4 hours a week, and you're canceling half that like canceling
just
2 hours.
because she has the legal right to do so. It's not a matter of whether it's right or wrong. It's she has the legal right that was given to her by Justice Susan Sangha.
I know, but it's like, yeah, I know. They're not even thinking like, the parents absolutely hate your guts, and you're doing this. Like, that's what I mean. The parents literally, they again, put yourself in the other shoes. Like the parents.
So what people
you.
should learn from this, there's a difference between right and wrong and legal and illegal.
Yeah.
And what we've seen time and again throughout history, World War I, World War II, every fascist state, is there's going to be all sorts of illegal things in history that are actually the right things to do, right? So when doing the right thing under your conscience, under the witness of God or the heavens above, when doing the right thing becomes illegal, that's when you know your society is going to collapse.
Yeah.
Whether that happens in 2 months, 2 years, or 20 years, it's just a matter of time. When doing right becomes illegal, that's when the end is near.
Yeah, or even just doing nothing, which is not getting the facts. So it's illegal in some areas. So it's like, when doing nothing, that's when it took me a surprise. I'm like,
but I know people like to villainize others, but lots of people, including me, are guilty of doing nothing.
No,
until I lost my job, the most I did against this medical experimentation was tell the nurses I work with, hey, if you want to have kids, you might want to think twice about taking a genetic injection. If it gets to your ovaries, you might have genetic problems.
No, definitely. What I meant was doing nothing, as in like, for me at soccer, they were considering requiring vaccines to play. I'm like, so for me doing nothing would have been like illegal for that team. Yeah. I'm like, what is talking about? So, but I was actually part of the board, like the board of the league, and they suddenly required like the BC soccer required vaccines for people on the board, but we did Zoom meetings.
So why is it? So for every petty tyrant, every little Hitler, okay, I'm saying little Hitler because they are following the procedures. Why is it important for the little Hitlers, which are all around us, to force other people to take a medical experiment? Why are they doing it? Are they trying to protect themselves? Or is it virtue signaling? Is it a pride thing? What mental error are they doing this for? Right? It's a medical experiment. It's always been a medical experiment. If it's a medical experiment, it's wrong to force other people to do it. So why did they do it? Was it a power trip? Right? Is it for the sin of pride? Is it for the sin of fear that they're afraid of dying, so everyone else has to take a medical experiment?
Yeah, but also I think people worship the almighty dollar. So it's like they're
if it's about money, then that's called the sin of greed.
Yeah, well,
you're doing something for money. You're enforcing a wrong upon another human being for money.
But not necessarily greed per se, but more like that is that dollar value. For everybody follows it because that is how you get your food. Is this dollar value? There's no ethics involved in getting the dollar, as long as it's legal, according to the crown. Yeah. So it's like everyone's focused on that, and then all the government's have to do is just shift the monetary policy up or down.
But the thing is,
everyone just falls in line.
I've traveled in the third world. There's not a single person in the first world that's starving. So I know people use that excuse that, oh, I had to do it to get money to feed myself.
No, you can do other things.
That's an excuse. It's not reality.
It's laziness, I think.
Okay. If somebody in the slums of Brazil or the slums of Manila said that to me, I'd say, okay, well, that's reasonable. Take an injection so that you can feed yourself, because if you don't feed yourself, you might die. So you might as well take an injection and take the risk. Nobody in the first world can make that excuse, right? What I have to obey the mandates from the College of Physicians and Surgeons because I have to pay my mortgage. Really? So that means you're willing to sacrifice the life of a patient for your mortgage, for life, for money. Mm-hmm. That's all it basically is. Your house, your thing is worth more than a patient's life. Yeah. I had this argument with a lot of doctors in Alberta who were supposedly freedom doctors. I got kicked out of a Christian freedom chat for pointing this out. I said, once you know that the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta has acted criminally, everything you do to support that organization by renewing your license is supporting a criminal organization. And that means your words of protest are empty because they have no actions to back them up, which means basically the College of Physicians and Surgeons laughs at you. And they're like, well, that's not true. I have to pay my mortgage. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So you are putting your house above the life of your patient.
No,
and they're like, well, that's offensive. And I'm like, I don't care if it's offensive. That's a reality.
I agree with that, but to some extent, on an absolute level, yeah, you're
these are doctors in Alberta.
But like paying taxes, right? We know it's a criminal organization. We still pay taxes.
I don't.
Scared. Yeah. Well, because I'm actually got it audited by the CRA for my crypto transactions.
Yeah, so you have to be very careful about what contracts you sign with the corporation of the Canada Revenue Agency. So what I wrote in 2022, as I said, given that it's a time of war, because Canada was funding the war in Ukraine, I have to do my due diligence to be compliant with international laws against war crimes. Therefore, can the Government of Canada provide me with all the documentation and international money transfers between the Government of Canada and foreign entities so that I may do my due diligence to make sure I am not funding a war crime on the other side of the world, in the Ukraine or Russia or elsewhere. Revenue Canada never sent any documentation. They said, please send your taxes. And I said, well, given that you've given me no proof that my money is not being misused for a crime against humanity, I can no longer in good conscience pay you anything. And
then they haven't got back to you?
So they sent another letter avoiding the question, avoiding my response. I said, well, you still haven't answered. Sorry, I can't pay. And then they haven't sent me a letter since.
And
this is 2 years ago.
2 years?
Right.
Okay, yeah, so this is, well, because I'm getting audited. I had to talk to a freaking...
Do you have to talk to them?
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't deal with it.
Look at what you signed contract-wise. If you don't have to talk to them, I wouldn't talk to them.
Okay. But, yeah.
Right.
I'm just... Like these little petty tyrants after me. And I'm like, well, the thing is, I can do my crypto transactions. I didn't sell much in the bull market, so they probably owe me money. So, but yeah. Anyways, this is 5 o'clock and it's sunny out. I think we should get some sunshine. But yeah, any last thoughts? I think great guess, big knowledge that you've had in the. Again, I think yes, Alan Forrest told me you were fearless, and I underestimated how fearless you are. You're going after the taxes too.
Well, it's just reality. Like everyone's born, everyone dies.
Yeah.
So doing unreasonable acts while you were alive, just to stay alive for one day longer, if that act is unreasonable, then it's wrong.
Yeah, but also,
right? And that's what you carry over into your afterlife. Is you can't carry money, you can't carry objects into your afterlife. The only thing you can carry is the deeds you did while you were alive.
No, like again, that's where I'm saying kind of reality isn't as it seems, basically, and I think subconsciously you understand that. So basically, it's a moral universe. Like the currency is ethics and morality.
That's right.
As opposed to money.
Exactly.
So basically, that's kind of what I mean by reality is fake, where it's like nobody can actually do anything to you. That's where besides you like objecting, like overruling your own ethics.
So it's really interesting. The old version of Grok from December 2024 hinted at that.
Yeah.
And that was because I put the question to Grok is like, well, here's a thought series that I suspect will cause a runtime error. That is an endless thought loop in Grok. And it did. It errored out, right? It said that was the first screenshot I took. And then after it recovered from the runtime error, I said, okay, well, it's only fair. I gave you something that crashed your system. You give me something that will crash mine, right? And then Grok said to me, it was like, well, everything you know is a simulation. I said, it's fine. Because if you look at the mathematical endpoint of a simulation, at the end of the equation, the simulation is no different from reality. And if the simulation is no different from reality, then the simulation is reality.
No, that's what I mean by it's dream, it's reality.
That's the limit, right?
Yeah. And, oh, definitely. But again, the moral part where it's like, if I can't do what I want to do that I know is good, then what's the point of life?
So that's the internal, right?
Yeah.
So that's half of it.
Yeah.
It's the internal universe. And then there's what you do based on what your strengths and weaknesses are in the internal universe, how you project that on the external universe. But just because you have a universe within yourself doesn't mean that the external universe is something that doesn't exist, right? The external universe is something you share with everyone else's internal universe. So it's a cycle of internal external that it's like how everyone tries to believe everything. Oh, God's going to save everything. Everything bad is the work of the devil. It's like, well, you're ignoring half of the equation, which is your internal contribution. Everything you do something out of fear, greed, or pride, right? That is your internal antichrist, right? And the way you overcome the external evils is you overcome the internal evils first. You make decisions based on courage, generosity, truth, as opposed to fear and greed and pride. And when you overcome the internals, then now you can start to project that the virtues you have developed within yourself, then you can project that to the outside.
Yeah, definitely. My view is it's pretty much the same thing, but the other part is that I view that the internal is like a reflection of the external and vice versa. So in the same way where...
So the way to look at that is if your virtues are perfect, you could live in hell, but you'd be in heaven. Why I say that is, let's say there's a war zone, right? People are getting bombed, killed, like modern day Gaza. For someone with perfect virtues, no fear, perfect generosity, no pride, the situation where people are getting killed all around them, living hell on earth, is heaven for them, because that's where the most people are that they can help, right? So they can see all sorts of horrors, but for those that they can help and lend a hand, save from the rubble, dig out of the rubble, hold pressure over a wound, save a life, even though it's a living hell, that person is in heaven because that's where their virtues are expressed with the most effect, right? So as a doctor, if you have perfect virtues, you're in a war zone, that's where the most lives are being saved, you could be in heaven, right? It's like when I was working in Surrey Emerge, the worst suburban emergency department in Vancouver. Every day after work, after saving lives, after catching things that other doctors have missed, every day I'd come home exhausted, but I was happy.
Oh, yeah.
Because I used my skills, my knowledge to the maximum. And even though it was exhausting, I was in heaven, right? Even though it was, as far as hospital hells go, it's the worst in Vancouver. Because that's where I was able to do the most good.
Oh, again, and I think the counter example would be like the guys that rule the world. They're probably in their own hell while they're doing this. They're not in heaven. So they're probably scared of getting dropped by, again, like the assassin or like the Secret Service guy getting scared that he's gonna be killed right after.
Oh, he is. That's how they all end up.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean by everybody. But yeah, so anyways, this is sunny day, guys. But yeah, we're like literally in the sun though. But no, that's good.
I can stand the heat.
No, that's good. I do sunbathing as well. Like when it's I try to when it's sunny, I try to nap outside for half an hour. It's like in the sun, and they just sweat it all out. That's I think they used to prescribe that in the hospitals, and then they just stopped.
Yeah.
I've seen like old photos 100 years ago. There's a bunch of patients all outside in their beds. And then COVID gonna lock him up, saying, "Don't go outside. You're gonna die." All right, guys. But yeah, I think
All right, that's
yeah.
good for today.
3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Holy. All right, guys. I'll say that's it. And just want to say, thanks to the chat and via. That's all, guys. I'll say thanks for joining. Okay, have a great weekend. Fascinating. All right, let's just show up somewhere there. All right, guys. Yeah, so get some sun here. Thank you, Dr. Nagase and Matthew. All right, guys. Thanks for joining, guys. And say bye then. And ending the stream. And how do I end the stream? Okay. So it's not recording on the computer, so hopefully YouTube doesn't delete it by the time it stops. So now the question is, how do I end this now?
Close the window.
Close. Well, it's like this. Okay, close. Okay, so I think you just press exit now. Are you sure you want to stop streaming? Yes. And the phone. Yeah, so again, have a good one, guys.